The story begins with a confession to his daughter about the history of the Spartan clan. Listen carefully, Macaron. Before the imperial people invaded the continent, the Spartans were likened to the continent's solid rampart. Castella, the Spartan patriarch and Macaron's father, he could not hide his pride. We, the Spartan clan, were once the strongest people on this continent, because to him, the Spartan warriors were born with superior physical abilities. Half a day after birth, they could already stand firm. Before they could speak, they could tame wild beasts. At the 18-year-old coming-of-age ceremony, they had to defeat a dragon with their bare hands. The imperial people arbitrarily built the royal capital on this land. They viewed the Spartan clan as warlords, granting titles and wealth as rewards. But we will forever lose the instincts of a warrior race. Thinking of the scene where everyone in the clan is fat and rolling around, he felt so ashamed. What a humiliation. At that moment, he turned his spirited eyes toward Macaron. Haven't you grown up too, Macaron, to become the next master of the Spartan clan? Show me your strength. When her father said that, Macaron spoke in a soft voice. Father, may I say something? He immediately replied, Speak up, my daughter. Macaron gathered all her courage and spoke passionately. I want to get married too, and live a comfortable life like other girls. Hearing his daughter's words, he froze for a moment, unable to believe his ears. Macaron self-pityingly said, Being a warrior doesn't suit me. I like taking care of flowers and reading poetry, wearing beautiful dresses and enjoying tea parties. Her hands trembled unconsciously. I'm sick of eating a fixed menu for fear of losing muscle. Truthfully, I don't like physical training at all. I hate being the heir. Macaron hesitated for a while before finally daring to look at her father and say, Father, please hand it over to my older brother. But the maidservants, not far away, were too familiar with this atmosphere. Their faces turned pale as they whispered to each other, Everyone, the young lady has opened her mouth. Let's prepare to leave here. Hurry up. Macaron's father remained silent for a while and then asked Macaron back, Are you refusing the position of the next patriarch right now? She was stunned by her father's question. Then Macaron gathered all her courage and replied yes. In exchange, please let me go out to attend the debutante ball held. Tomorrow, the ball held once a year, where young ladies who have reached adulthood will debut to high society. For the first time, I will show them that even the Spartan clan has an extremely outstanding young lady. The words Macaron said quickly angered her father. His chest heaved, causing his shirt to quickly bulge out. The very next second, the chair he was sitting on broke violently. He roared with full spirit. Because Macaron's father used violent voice, his voice was already loud, and it became even louder. The maidservants could only cover their ears and scream in front of the food being splattered across the floor. He grabbed whatever was near him and threw it straight at Macaron without hesitation in a fit of rage. Even if I die, I will not allow you to go to the debutante ball. In the face of that situation, Macaron remained very composed. She gently placed her fork on the table. She turned her eyes toward her father. Then she immediately activated the Spartan secret technique. Falcon's wind-tearing vision. I see it. The trajectory of the plates rushing toward me. The plates rushing quickly toward her. Had their trajectories seen through by her. Just like that, Macaron easily swiped away the pile of things rushing at her. But she didn't notice that a plate almost struck the maidservant behind her. When the maidservant saw her swipe the items away, she was very astonished. Young lady. In the eyes of the maidservant, Macaron looked so cool with that appearance. Isn't this the appearance of the young lady of 1,000 years? The maidservant couldn't help but gasp in praise. Strength hidden inside elegance. Surely the young lady will become a role model for all ladies. Seeing his daughter's actions, Macaron's father only laughed inwardly. Macaron, you are still far from being a match for me. He laughed wickedly and used Wolf's howl violent voice, a move that attacks the eardrums of the opponent. Immediately blood spurted from Macaron's ears, causing her extreme pain. Looking at this scene, the maidservant stood stunned for a few seconds. After that, she panicked and screamed, blood is coming out of the young lady's ears. The maidservants in the back were extremely frantic. Holly, the maidservant near Macaron, was reminded, but she couldn't hear clearly. What did everyone say? So a maidservant hurriedly ran over and spoke into her ear. What are you doing? Why haven't you given the earplugs to the young lady? The maidservant finally realized she was still holding the earplugs. That's right. At this moment, Macaron's father calmly walked toward Macaron. Listen here, daughter. What is more important than the high society debut ceremony is the coming of age ceremony, which proves your strength. Looking at his child collapsing in front of him in pain, he still spoke indifferently. Do you think I will just stand by and watch you wear a dress, and then act like a doll? Even though Macaron was in pain, she still spoke with a trembling tone. Father, you are going too far. Then she sobbed and continued. Don't look down on the proud ladies of the empire. But her father didn't understand those things at all. He grumbled, "To live is to fight. Can something like pride save you on the battlefield?" Macaron stopped crying. "I know that, but a long time ago. The Spartan clan achieved great merits and was granted a title by the emperor. We no longer have any reason to prove our strength by catching dragons with our bare hands anymore." Faced with his daughter's stubbornness, Macaron's father once again used the Spartan secret technique, the wolf's howl violent voice, at Macaron, causing blood to erupt from her ears again. She couldn't take it anymore and collapsed onto the floor, making all the maidservants worried. "Young lady, are you okay? Haven't you given the earplugs to the young lady yet?" Right then, Macaron's father just lightly threw a cloak over himself, then said to the maidservants, "Take her back to her room to rest." The maidservant immediately took the order. "Yes, yes, patriarch." Macaron had no choice but to end the meal by having the maidservants support her to her room. "Let's go." Young lady, by nightfall when the moon had risen near its peak, Macaron was in her room and still hadn't slept at all, sensing the light through the gaps in the bandages. Macaron just kept brooding and thinking deeply. Something like powerful strength. I know that not everyone is gifted with that ability. She reminisced about when she was a little girl. Not a single girl wanted to come near her. But someone who is too powerful will be hated by the world because of human instinct, is to avoid contact with individuals who are different. My mother, who was once said to be the strongest woman in the empire, though she appeared to be a strong woman on the outside, whom no one dared to challenge. In truth, she might have felt very lonely. That is why on that darkest New Year's Eve in December, in the silent night, even the sharp senses of a mouse became useless. Mother left, leaving me and father behind. When I was young, Macaron didn't know how many times she had prayed to God. "Oh God, please don't let mother leave me. Please make the weather very cold so mother will return to me." But every time there was just the sound of a door opening, she would immediately spring up. Her feet kept racing quickly toward the door. Back then, Macaron did everything just in hope that her mother would return. "Mother, please don't go." As she recalled those painful memories, Macaron unconsciously let the tears fall. Suddenly, from outside the room, her father's voice rang out. "Macaron, are you still awake?" She sadly replied yes. This time his voice was much softer than before. "Listen to me." But he still did not give up his point of view. "You are in existence, different from those ordinary young ladies, being chosen by someone for marriage and discarding the Spartan surname, to live only as a member of another clan. That is not your life. Do you understand what I mean?" Hearing her father's words, Macaron was silent for a long time until she spoke up with a sob. "Father, I'm sorry. I will definitely live an ordinary life." At that moment, she secretly swore to herself, "I will live like a weak, fragile, and delicate young lady." Hearing Macaron's answer, her father only mused. "Is that what you want?" After that, he only left one sentence. "Go to sleep. It's late," and then said nothing more. The next morning, when the sunbeam shone into her room, the maidservant softly called into Macaron's ear. "Young lady, it's time to wake up." She let out a cry, showing that she didn't want to get up yet. The maidservant patiently called again. "The sun is already high up. If you keep going like this, you will die. You still have to go to the debutante ball, right?" Hearing these words, Macaron's whole body seemed to wake up. With a posture as if about to fall off the bed, Macaron couldn't believe her ears and asked again, "What?" "I'm going to the debutante ball." Macaron's mood immediately became jubilant. She hurriedly ran to the dressing room. When the maidservant opened the door for her, Macaron looked at the dresses inside and froze. "What is the meaning of this?" The dress designer only gently replied, "Oh my. Young lady, you are awake. Are these the dresses that the Count requested, father?" Macaron couldn't believe it. Her face flushed slightly with emotion for me. "Why, even though father is always strict with me. But the truth is, father always thinks of me more than anyone, doesn't he?" She looked over the dresses and then the jewelry, thinking to herself. Only then did she shyly scratch her head and ask the designer, Do you have a red dress woven from precious silk?" She then teased Macaron back. As expected. "The young lady likes outfits with prominent colors, right?" At that moment, Macaron felt extremely happy in her heart, because she knew that. "I actually received official permission from father and am debuting to high society. It's just like a dream." Outside the mansion, a carriage was also prepared and ready to take her away, admiring Macaron wearing a lovely red dress. Every maidservant praised her. "Congratulations on your debut, young lady Macaron. The dress suits you very well." Before Macaron left, the maidservant also carefully advised, "Please go and return safely, young lady. Please be careful." Until the moment she stepped into the carriage, Macaron still couldn't believe the reality before her eyes. "It's so sudden that I still find it hard to believe. I never expected everything to happen in just one night. Donning the red dress of my dreams, sitting in a gold-plated carriage, departing for the distant royal capital." Sitting in the carriage, Macaron looked at the scenery outside with a heart full of anticipation. At the debutante ball held once a year, I will no longer be lonely, and I will experience encounters that make my heart flutter. Just thinking about this. She could not hide the joy on the corners of her mouth as adolescent questions rose in her heart. Even though I have grown up, I still don't know how to drink alcohol. What if wonderful people invite me for a drink? She even dreamed about romance. I heard that Grand Duke Mon, Lang of the North, is very handsome. If during a dance, I trip and fall, and we are struck by love at first sight, I don't know what I'd do. Macaron imagined that young man would smile very gently and say to her, "Oh my, I didn't expect that in. Terra Rosa, there would be such a beautiful lady. Let's vow to be together for a lifetime." Beside a sled pulled by 20 wolves, he would propose like that, and I would become a noble lady of the North. But suddenly, Macaron realized she had let her imagination fly too far, so she placed her hand over her chest, telling herself to stay calm. A young lady must not let her emotions be swayed. A young lady will always maintain a perfect posture, poker face, and unchangeable principle that a beloved girl must keep. From the moment I stepped down from the carriage, I must maintain an elegant appearance. When she left, the sky was still clear blue. By the time she arrived, it was late afternoon. The carriage driver outside spoke up. "We have arrived." "Young lady." Macaron then hurriedly woke up after a long sleep. Macaron quickly wiped away the drool still lingering at the corner of her mouth and stepped down. "Have we arrived already?" Even though she intended to step down with an elegant appearance. Looking at the scenery, she was extremely excited. This place is the Castella Royal Capital. Her eyes shone brightly with anticipation for tonight's party. However, right at that moment, the carriage driver hurriedly sped away. "Young lady, I hope you return alive." "I'm sorry." Leaving Macaron immediately confused. Wait. At that moment, she looked closely at everything before her eyes. Macaron stood dazed, unable to believe she had been tricked. She could already imagine her father's gloating face. "Daughter, you are far from outsmarting this father of yours." Looking at the birds flying in the sky and the lush trees, Macaron has now realized the truth. Pretending to take me to the royal capital, but actually going to this place, the territory of wild dragons. She immediately recalled the map to the royal capital. Running to the royal capital at the speed of a carriage would take half a day. By then, the party would be over because I'd arrive tomorrow morning. Now Macaron could only clench her fists in utter helplessness. If only I hadn't fallen asleep. I could have changed the direction. She angrily scolded herself like an idiot. Suddenly, at that moment, with a loud noise, the birds flew away in fear. Macaron turned her eyes toward where the birds flew up. At this time, a giant dragon baring its teeth appeared before her eyes. With this situation, Macaron immediately thought of a plan. There is still a way to fix this situation. Killing the dragon is what father wants. Looking at the dragon pouncing toward her, she was determined in her heart. In that case, I will not fight the dragon. I will tame it. A journey that takes a whole day by horse. If I ride a dragon, I can reach the debutante ball in the blink of an eye. While she was preparing her strength to fight the dragon, Macaron prepared her stance to use the Spartan secret technique, the Panther's Descent, with the mindset that this is the last time I use my power. Suddenly, a loud noise caught the dragon's attention. In front of Macaron, a brown-haired young man suddenly appeared. Standing in the way of danger, move back quickly, leaving her quickly stunned. Looking at the young man in front of her. Her heart was full of questions. Who is this? The young man turned his head to look at Macaron. His face was excellent, his golden eyes under the afternoon sun. His beauty was more radiant than ever. While Macaron was dazed by his beauty, the young man quickly waved his hand, telling her to run away. "I will stop the dragon. Don't just stand there dazed. You leave here quickly." However, before a few seconds passed, the young man was stomped flat onto the ground by the dragon. The dragon quickly held him tight under its claws and let out a growl. Looking at this scene that happened at lightning speed, Macaron was very dazed. Her heart even wondered mockingly, what was that? Is he an idiot? The dragon was in a state of rage. Its eyes flared with fire as it looked toward. Seeing that Macaron was unharmed, it let out a massive roar, causing everything around her to fly into a frenzy. Macaron finally could no longer hold back. This was not the time for her eyes to flare up in rage. Terrifying veins bulged on her arms, mourning the deceased. What she was using was the secret magic of the Sparta clan. Leopard's Strike, Roaring Leopard's Claw. The magic conjured glowing golden iron chains, rushing toward the dragon. The dragon cried out in pain through the dark night. Macaron's eyes looked at the dragon with determination. The dragon roared fiercely. Light exploded within its mouth, while her chains were tightly wrapped around its body, followed by a streak of fire tearing across the sunset sky. On its back was Macaron, trying to hold on to the chains to subdue the dragon, which was going frantic. She tried to shout loudly, "Listen carefully to my words. if you take me to the Imperial City, I will spare you." Her voice grew increasingly annoyed and commanding. "Supposing you dare to come and cause trouble again, burning down that human village from earlier, then I will destroy you with my own hands." The dragon finally had to obey, tears welling up as if crying for help. Finally, the dragon agreed to follow her, sitting on its back. Macaron clenched her teeth and muttered, "So fast, this must be the supersonic flight of the dragon race. If I don't focus intensely, I will fall off." Suddenly, as she looked up, she saw a flock of birds rushing toward her. They saw Macaron with great excitement, finally diving down and pecking their beaks at her, causing her to tilt this way and spin that way. "Get out of the way quickly, you will get hurt." After a moment of being bothered by those birds, the ribbon came undone. Macaron panicked, reaching her hand behind. "Oh no, my ribbon." She hurried, reaching out to pull it, but she could no longer reach it. Suddenly, Macaron's hand finally managed to pull the string of her ribbon. But at this moment, Macaron blankly realized something. All the magic. The chains and the ribbon once again flew out of her hands. Macaron panicked and quickly reached out to grab the dragon to use as a foothold. I lost my focus, so the chains disappeared. Therefore, she clung to the dragon's tail. At that, even the dragon's jaw had to drop. Macaron's eyes turned bright red again. "I'll just use magic to endure with my willpower." The little dragon's tail was very quickly severed from its body. Lizards will cut off their own tails and flee when they encounter a natural enemy, and Macaron was falling toward the ground in utter agony. Truly, nothing is going right at all. The final landing spot turned out to be a tree branch, and Macaron was in a state of being hung upside down. But the wait after a long while caused the dress to gradually tear into two halves, and Macaron fell once more into the unknown. She hit the ground with a body covered in wounds, with disheveled hair. At this moment, Macaron stood up blankly, letting out a gasp in her heart. It's really over. There is nothing left to cling to. Macaron looked at the dress she had carefully prepared, now tattered with no original shape left at all. I can't wear a torn dress, tattered like this to the debut. Everyone will laugh at my face. But Macaron did not want to back down. But I must meet her. Macaron recalled the tea party from that year. Ikle stared at the other person and asked with a smile, "Macaron, what's with that dress?" Ikle, the young lady of the Castus family, she panicked for a moment. "Lady Ikle is striking up a conversation with me." Macaron thought it was a compliment and introduced it in a whisper. "This dress is made from a new type of fabric imported from the Moonlight Shop. Last time I chose the color that my mother often wears." But immediately after, a burst of laughter echoed back. So provincial, Macaron looked up in total bewilderment. "Huh? At the tea party of the Duke Castar family. Only chosen ones can attend. The daughter of a tycoon, the daughter of an artist, and the daughter of the palace magician. Everyone had a clear advantage to be chosen. On the contrary, the daughter of Count Spartan, originating from a barbarian tribe, was just a delicious snack served with tea. They immediately brought her up for criticism as an elegant pastime. Lady Macaron has a skin tone as fresh as spring. Does this dress have summer colors that don't match? What's with that hairstyle too? Maybe she wants to imitate Lady Ikle." Hearing this, she laughed mockingly. "Ah, is that so?" Macaron became flustered and bowed her head. "This hairstyle, it's true that I imitated her. Ekele is like a breeze. Wherever she sweeps through, she sets a fashion trend. Everything she eats becomes famous." Since she was little, Macaron thought this. It turns out, you can still be that cool without holding a sword. I have always admired Ekele like that. But from Ikle's perspective, imitating like this must make her very uncomfortable. She squeezed the teacup, her heart full of thoughts. I was afraid of being hated. And I didn't want everyone to find out about this, because I didn't want to be an imitator, but a friend. So she looked up, smiled, and said that this hairstyle was done for me by my mother. Ikle glanced over suspiciously and asked back, "Your mother?" Macaron kept nodding. "Yes." In her heart, she told herself, "Now that I've said mother did it, she won't ask any further, will she?" But her laughter echoed loudly throughout the tea party. "Sorry." She widened her eyes, not understanding why she was laughing. Her hand lightly touched a piece of cake on the tray to expose the truth. "No need to lie, Macaron. I know everything. Your mother is not at home." Once again, she was exposed for everything. "How did you—" Ikle laughed while telling it loudly like a funny story. "Rumors are spreading everywhere that the mistress of the house, Spartan, has abandoned her family. In front of us. You don't need to hide it. Friends should be honest with each other. Understand? I feel uncomfortable, like a bucket of cold water running down my spine." Macaron still tried to act normal. Must not ruin the atmosphere. Jujubee, who had been silent, also started to notice her. "Smile, because those are the words of a friend." Macaron suddenly crushed the teacup at the phrase, "because of friends." A scream quickly reached Ekle's ears. "So hot! What are you doing?" Macaron had used magic in her anger. "I'm sorry." I will wipe it clean right away. Once again, it caused the table to explode. The young lady with extraordinary strength did not realize. A shard of pottery accidentally grazed the famous young lady, Lady Equal. The entire party went deathly silent. My own power could endanger others. That was her first and also her last tea party. The bloodline of a rude and violent tribe, Ekle. Nowadays, no one dares to say such things outright. But their fearful eyes said it all. That they were different from me, the debut. I had always been waiting for the day to meet those people again. Macaron clenched her fists in anger. And yet I can't meet them. It's all truly over. She punched the ground in grievance. If I go there wearing a torn dress now, they will definitely kick me out no matter what. Resentful, Macaron suddenly looked up. A strange figure appeared before her. A man with a bloodied face was approaching. Huh? How can he be here? He was clearly trampled to death by the dragon. But he quickly spoke up, catching her thoughts. How is that person here? That's what you're thinking, right? So he recounted the exciting experience from just now. While being flattened by the dragon, I managed to grab its tail. At this moment, Macaron was still bewildered. Huh? Trampled like that and still not dead? At that point, she reflected on the sequence of us falling from a great height. If it were a normal person, they would surely be smashed to pieces. At this moment, he turned to speak to her. You there, falling from such a height and still surviving. Macaron snapped out of her thoughts when he mentioned her. She awkwardly introduced herself. That's because I am of the Spartan clan. Surely he didn't see me crying just now, did he? In the very next second, Ganet spoke up and asked again, Are you the heir of the Spartan family? A series of brilliant magic was activated around him. You are just as strong as what I've heard. Macaron immediately recognized this brilliant power. That is healing ability. Macaron gasped in amazement. You are a priest, not a warrior. But he only calmly explained, My healing is different from holy power. It doesn't just heal external wounds. It can also cure all types of diseases, including terminal ones. Macaron quickly became interested in this magic. I have never heard of such a healing ability before. Which family do you come from? He tilted her head slightly. Have you heard of the Terran family of the East? Macaron muttered, Terran... that cursed family? As soon as she said it, she realized she had misspoken. I'm sorry, Macaron panicked. Her head was spinning. She had accidentally blurted out what she had heard. But Ganet only smiled to indicate. It's okay, I'm used to it. It's okay? Used to being discriminated against because of his origin? The family of Count Terran, a family shrouded in death. Wherever they go, plague appears there. A family where flowers dare not bloom. Trees dare not live, let alone an entire garden. People look down on the Terran family, to the point that no one invites their descendants to the debut. When she reached out her hand for him to treat her, she truly couldn't understand it. I heard they are the family that spreads the plague, but yet they can cure terminal illnesses. The healing magic of Ganet very quickly clung around her body. It's being treated. To be more precise, he heals wounds. By absorbing the life force of the forest, he fell from the sky and stayed alive by absorbing the life of the forest. He absorbs from different lives, then heals himself. The more she thought, the more Macaron shuddered slightly. For some reason, she found it truly terrifying. Suddenly, she lightly shook Ganet to break free from the magic. That's enough healing. You don't need to treat me anymore. His eyes lightly swept over her with suspicion. So, a price must be paid to heal a life. It's like the equivalent exchange that alchemists talk about. To perform healing, it's necessary to inflict damage on an equivalent amount of living beings, because living creatures are the easiest things to sacrifice. Macaron reflected for a bit. Sacrifice? But looking at the withered weeds, Ganet sighed. Even so, I can't leave your wounds like that. If only I could find another material. That would be good. Suddenly, the two of them glanced at each other, as if they had found a new solution. A dragon's tail in the bushes. Material. The severed tail of a dragon. Macaron tentatively asked, Can this be used as a material? Ganet simply nodded. His affirmation made her so shocked she had to ask again. Really? After that, another healing session took place. While healing, he explained, dragon scales have very strong regenerative powers. Small wounds will be healed instantly. It won't disappear until midnight, so it should be fine. Looking at herself in her new appearance, Macaron marveled, Amazing. Truly amazing. A dress made from dragon scales is super special, isn't it? Because she was so happy, she rushed to hug him. Thank you. You saved my life. Please tell me your name. I will definitely return this favor. I am Macaron. And you? He smiled and looked up at the girl in his arms affectionately. Ganet. Ganet Terran. As if remembering something, she asked again, Ganet, aren't you going to the debut ceremony? The debut ceremony? Macaron nodded her head slightly. Yeah, you have to go there and show everyone your wonderful qualities. But Ganet only shook his head. You are very kind, but I have things I must do. I am treating that wild dragon from earlier. Newborn dragons are very weak. It attacked humans to feed its child. It must be around here somewhere. Hearing this, Macaron was horrified. So that's how it is. The Spartan bloodline is truly ruthless, but he also turned and showed concern for her. But isn't it very far from here to the Imperial City? But she proudly beat her chest. I can just run, okay? Having said that, she got into a running stance just as he finished his sentence. Macaron accelerated and dashed forward with extreme intensity. Next time I will come to visit. Thank you very much. Ganet was left speechless. But then, the smile on his lips gently widened as he replied. At this moment, she was joyfully heading toward the castle. Let's go. To the debut ceremony at the Castella Imperial City Spring Palace. The wooden carriage gradually stopped in front of the mansion. Everyone looked on in bewilderment. That is the Silver Wolf of the North, Grand Duke Montbang. Upon seeing the figure of that special person, everyone couldn't stop marveling. What brought him to attend the party this year? He has reached marriageable age after all. Saber glanced at the palace and slowly stepped onto the red carpet. Perhaps he is here to find a bride. Saber Vanilla Montbang, the young head of the Duke Montbang family. One day, at a mansion where black was the dominant color, a man possessing snow-white hair and purple eyes was born into the world. He lived in a distant and barren land. Raised as a warrior since childhood, in the ordinary sense, he was not an ideal marriage candidate. Nhưng đám quý tộc lại mê anh như điều độ. As soon as they saw him, the ladies flocked to praise him. I heard that you have become the swordsman, the strongest in history. Congratulations, my lord. Coincidentally, he is also the handsome man of the century. Suddenly, she awkwardly apologized. I am sorry, my lady. Are you all right? But Eagle quickly used her fan to brush her hand away. She frowned in displeasure. Don't touch me. On the other side. The young ladies, seeing her, immediately began to flatter. Lady Eclair, are you all right? Truly, Eclair Cream Castus, the young lady of the Duke Eclair family, possessing outstanding beauty and intellect. She also possesses superior charisma. She is praised and envied by many in the empire. Jewelry crafted specifically for her is so famous that it was given the name Eclair Gold. Eclair is truly a famous figure of the empire, whom everyone wants to befriend. Everyone was looking forward to the debut of her elite circle. As soon as she saw Saber, she gracefully approached him. Lord Saber, hello, it must have been a lot of hard work traveling such a long way here. But the nobles were absolutely infatuated with him. Eckley was stunned. What? He doesn't know me? I am a famous figure of the empire. Whispers and gossip echoed from afar. Lord Saber didn't greet her back at all. So, Lady Eagle was rejected, right? She suddenly froze in place. The young ladies nearby were also stunned, their mouths agape in bewilderment. Those insects, how dare they? Lady Eagle! The flattering young ladies had to chase after her to continue their fawning words. A girl saw her standing still and hurriedly urged her to help. Why aren't you following her yet? What are you still standing there for? Can't you see Lady Eagle is angry? Yes. At that moment, she rushed past Lord Saber, although he noticed. She only dared to cast a single glance back. Saber's gaze was full of coldness, but there was still a lingering, strange sadness hidden deep within it. When she had gone, Saber also glanced back toward the rear. His mood clearly expressed his irritation. The debut ceremony is truly a bothersome event. The girl still would not leave him alone. Lord Saber, I wonder if you have decided on a dance partner yet? Suddenly, his pupils shifted slightly. Saber turned sharply toward the door. What is this terrifying energy coming from the direction of the door? A violent aura is radiating intensely from outside the castle. Saber frowned and clenched his hand into a fist as if it were a monster. Saber felt a bit of fear as his breathing began to quicken. There's no mistake. This is a monster ambush. Stay calm. He hurriedly felt his side. If I don't have a sword. And Saber stood in a state of preparation, ready for action. Then I will strike with sword key. He felt that power getting closer and closer. It's here. The door was gradually pushed open, yet it was Macaron peering inside through the opening. She looked inside very shyly. Even Saber was surprised by her movement. He clearly felt it was the aura of a monster. Having just stepped inside, Macaron was overwhelmed by everything. So this is the spring palace of the Imperial City. It's as magnificent as I thought. There are so many wonderful people here too. In the crowd, she noticed there was a gaze constantly fixed on her. Why is that person staring at me so intensely? Suddenly, Macaron's eyes sparkled with anticipation. Could it be that he has fallen in love with me? But in Saber's head, there was only one thought. Who is that girl? How can this be? She came to the debut ceremony in a dress made of dragon skin. Saber cast a murderous gaze toward her. Does she intend to wipe out everyone here? At this moment, at the gate, the butler shouted loudly, Fool! Why the hell aren't you opening the door? The servant could only scratch his head and argue back. The young lady easily opened the door with one hand. It felt like something was overwhelming. After that, he just coughed once to regain his composure, then solemnly introduced the eldest daughter of the Spartan family, Macaron Moonberry Spartan entering. As soon as the words echoed, everyone turned their heads 180 degrees, just as they received her. Saber was in a completely different state. What? Spartan? The family with the blood of the barbarian tribe? At this moment, Ekle had only one thought. Macaron, you came to the debut ceremony? But over here, the young ladies began to pay much more attention to her, wearing a flashy dress like that. A young lady exclaimed with great interest, "The style is quite unique, isn't it? What material is it made of?" "I'm not sure." The back and forth comments were mostly positive, but it looks quite high-end. At this moment, Macaron stepped forward, accidentally bumping into the famous young lady. Seeing her, she felt half as inferior Ekle, but she only glanced at her without saying a word. Macaron's eyes welled up as if she was about to cry, Ekle, she is more beautiful than I thought." But Ekle paid no attention and simply turned away. Her mood plummeted to the lowest point. I've been ignored. But she herself had to nod in admission. It's only natural, I suppose. At this moment, in the crowd, Jujubee also noticed her. The melodious music began to play its tune. The sound of clinking glasses in celebration. Macaron began to feel lost among the people. The dancing has already started. It seems I am the last one to arrive. Ekle's side was bustling, a world of difference. "My lady, could you dance with me?" "Me too." As expected, Ekle is amazing. Therefore, she stood alone in a corner. "I guess no one will dance with me." Just as she was lording it over everyone with pride, a man made her appear to be struck dumb. A man slowly stepped forward, finally stopping in front of Macaron. He bowed solemnly. "The Montbang family of the North greets Lady Spartan. Would the lady care to have a dance with me?" Faced with this situation, she was naturally bewildered and didn't understand. If it's the Montbang of the North, the Grand Duke of the North, Saber, doesn't he have black hair? Over here, Ekle also stood frozen in disbelief. It's impossible. She temporarily couldn't accept this truth. Lord Saber invited Macaron to dance? How can that be? Because he was paying special attention to her, the family of the Count. Spartan is said to be the strongest warrior race. But this girl's body structure is not suitable to be a warrior, clad in a garment made of dragon skin and appearing at the debut ceremony. This appearance of trying to prove herself harmless is disgusting. Therefore, Saber decided to conduct a test. I will check to see whether Spartan is worthy of the title of a warrior family. So he could only propose that the two of them dance. However, I cannot duel with a woman. As for Macaron, she thought of nothing, only trying to make herself concentrate. Just like when I practiced. I can't believe it. This is the first time I've stood so close to a man like this. Before this, I only practiced dancing with the maidservants. Even so, Macaron had to tell herself not to make a mistake. In the end, she still made a mistake and stepped on Lord Saber's foot. She hurriedly let go, embarrassed. "I'm sorry, are you all right, my lord?" Saber stood deathly, still secretly complaining in his heart, asking if I'm all right. Seriously? With just that one blow. The bones in my foot are broken. Now I can only grit my teeth and endure the pain. I'm truly a fool. I deluded myself. This person doesn't view herself as a lady at all. I didn't expect there to be a lady in the Empire as bold as this. She is using this method to publicly challenge me. But in the eyes of outsiders, it looks like this. Look over there. Don't those two look like a perfect match? Perhaps it's because they both come from great families. Their movements are absolutely magnificent. I'm so jealous, but they look beautiful together. Following that, the two of them seem to blend into the music, performing a very graceful dance, which surprised Macaron more than anyone. She stared open-mouthed at Saber's handsome face. Strange. Why does it feel like I'm dancing better? Is it because of Lord Saber's leadership? It's so comfortable that I want to let my body drift with the music. From Saber's perspective, he was in agonizing pain. No matter how much I avoid it, she still steps on the exact same spot. Saber could only sigh. Is it just a common mistake? Or is she truly challenging me? Whatever it is, I wonder. Has there ever been a girl who made me feel nervous? To this extent? Her slender body, and her small hands like primroses. Yet she possesses a source of power that overwhelms me so. Me, the strongest swordsman on the continent. Recalling when I was young, I didn't want to raise sled dogs. The nanny only smiled and calmly explained. But young master, you are already holding that child in your arms. The moment you find it adorable, it's over. You can only raise it. Which collar should it wear? Now, he was blaming himself for being so shameless. She carries extraordinary strength within her. Why does she still look at me with such innocent, unknowing eyes? But for some reason, I find that appearance very lovely. Again, a sudden cry rang out from Macaron's side. I'm sorry, I stepped on your foot again. She was full of remorse. That last stomp was a bit hard. Are you still okay, my lord? Seeing him cover his face, Macaron panicked even more. She shook him even harder. Lord Saber, at this moment, was certain of one thing. I've lost. Everyone in the palace also began to pair up and dance together. On the upper floor, 2 people were looking down at this. Look over there. The 2 of them are still dancing together, standing from a different angle. They look like a couple who found each other at first sight. The 2 of them are both graceful and smooth, a matching pair of a talented man and a beautiful woman. But everyone could not stop clapping and cheering, as if they are letting us enjoy a beautiful swordsmanship performance. It looks so interesting. But the reality is, Saber is trying to dodge Macaron's blunt footsteps. Saber is truly exhausted. Every time he has to adjust neatly, so that his feet can reduce the force exerted by Macaron. The speed of her footsteps is getting faster and faster. Every time I get stepped on, my foot bones shatter. I can concentrate my magic power to recover from the bone injuries. The problem is, I have absolutely no chance to counterattack. And every time like that, he only receives an awkward apology. I'm sorry, even though throughout the whole process, she hasn't stopped reminding herself for a single second. Must not make a mistake. Despite that, the 2 of them still finished the dance, even though Lord Saber's inner frustration had reached its peak. In the end, I couldn't find a single opening. Just how strong is this girl's ability? Lady Eagle still keeps her attention on the famous couple over there, ignoring all invitations. She wants to scrutinize their every move. Lady Eagle, dance with me, okay? What kind of situation is that? The Silver Wolf of the North, showing such a nervous expression like that? Eagle gets angrier the more she thinks about it. The music changed tracks long ago, so why hasn't he changed partners? Could it be that she really enchanted the Silver Wolf of the North? Ekley bit her lip in anger. I didn't expect Lord Saber to be that kind of person. Your taste has no elegance at all. After that, she stepped out with her dance partner full of pride. The nobles. The young ladies got to admire another new couple. Lady Eclair. Lady Eclair of the Castard House has started dancing. Eclair very quickly revealed her potential beauty. Perhaps only Eclair is the one who can perform a solo dance in front of her dance partner. Then when they dance together, her dance partner will be intoxicated, mesmerized as if lost in a garden of blue roses. The entire party is now focusing only on her, making people marvel that she truly lives up to the title of the Empire's star, Lady Eagle. And she herself is arrogant because of that. In this world, no one can compare to my dancing skills. I am the star shining in the crowd. I was born that way. Not a single man in this empire can reject me, as she smugly turned toward Saber. But strangely, he didn't even glance her way once. He didn't even bother to look. Ekley was stunned. A lowly country girl who only dances as requested. What's so good about that? But the more she thought, the more she couldn't accept it. Have I lost? Ekley gritted her teeth, grinding them. I, a person who has never known defeat. Suddenly, a prince stepped forward and reached out his hand to propose. Dance with me, won't you? It's Prince Tat. Ekley stood still, momentarily speechless. A second later, she exclaimed in shock, Your Highness the Crown Prince! Ekley hurriedly performed a salute. The eldest daughter of the Castus house greets the son of the Empire. But I can't believe that His Highness the Crown Prince would appear here. I heard he was very busy with state affairs. But he only teased her slightly. Such a stiff greeting? She was startled and looked up in surprise. Tat slowly recalled memories with Ekley. Ekley, the last time we met was 15 years ago, right? Her heart began to flutter once again. It's been a long time since we met. Ekley has become a wonderful young lady. I didn't expect the child who once only reached my waist to have grown this much now. Recalling the past, her face turned bright red with shyness. That should be said to Your Highness instead. I almost didn't recognize you. On the outside, everyone was intensely following the gossip. The Crown Prince is inviting Lady Eagle to dance. Isn't she the first person today that the Crown Prince is speaking with? As expected, a woman who shines without even trying to even be noticed by His Highness the Crown Prince. But there is a high probability that Eagle will be the one to sit in the seat of the Crown Princess. The two began to gracefully blend into the music, together creating a classic dance. The name of the Duke Castel family says it all. This is the family that has an extremely close relationship with the Castella royal family. Before the people of the continent laid foundations on the new continent, there were 2 young men with golden hair. The elder brother, Castella, held the power of dominion, and the younger brother, Castella, stayed by his side to support and build the imperial city together. The history of the new continent began from there. The 2 of them danced, while shyly recalling the past with each other. Meeting Your Highness again, I feel as if I am dreaming. Yes, but he only smiled in response. I have always followed news about you, Ekley. The star of the Empire, you are quite famous, aren't you? Your portraits are published monthly in magazines and photo books. This left Echo a bit stunned. Yes, in her heart, a wave began to rise. Your Highness knows everything? I feel very happy. At this moment, she only glanced at her opponent with great pride. Lord Saber, go ahead and play with the daughter of the barbarian tribe to your heart's content, because I am the woman personally chosen by the Crown Prince. At this time, Macaron still didn't know that a serious matter was about to happen. A tear in the body of her dress began to snap open. At this moment, Ganet was holding the little dragon in his arms, muttering while looking toward the palace. Thinking back, at this hour, suddenly the dragon felt like crying out. He soothed it while thinking, she can probably handle it herself, right? Ganet thought so too, but it seems he wasn't quite that reassured, recalling how carefully he had instructed her earlier. Listen, Macaron, this dress is no different from a layer of dragon scales, covering the skin injured when you fell from a great height. If the wounds heal, the dress will disappear and return to its original state. Therefore, you must leave the ball before 12 midnight. Do you understand? Are you listening? The dress will disappear. Over here, the clock has struck 12 midnight. The young lady with extraordinary strength had forgotten that fact. If she doesn't quickly break away from this joyful moment, then what is about to happen will turn her whole life upside down. Over here, everyone is clinking glasses after the dance party, and Macaron is immersed in happiness, completely forgetting the words her new friend had advised. Instantly, both the long and short hands stopped at the number 12 simultaneously. The dress began to reveal its true form. Iklay happened to turn around just then, and Saber was also stunned, especially since the person herself still knew nothing. The outfit on Macaron's body very quickly dissolved into smoke. Seeing this scene, Eclair could not maintain her composure either. She appeared in the middle of the party looking completely disheveled. The dress was torn in half. Saber quickly ran over. He pulled her into his arms to protect her, but unexpectedly, he was sent flying by a strike from Macaron. A corner of the wall also shattered. Macaron's extraordinary strength was activated. After that, she had no way to retreat. Running out of the party full of bitterness, everyone at the party witnessed a dramatic spectacle. Iklay laughed disdainfully. So it was all just an act? It makes sense. What do you have to be proud of anyway? Young ladies from fallen families have to use their bodies to get ahead. You are exactly like that, Macaron. But Tat's mood was different. His cheeks turned bright red, as if he was infatuated with that moment of Macaron just now. Even Iklay was shocked and couldn't understand it. Outside, a pitch-black night enveloped the mansion. In a small corner, Macaron sat huddling by herself. So much resentment and suffering just kept rolling down her cheeks. Recalling what happened just now, the more she thought, the more it hurt. Everyone must be laughing in my face. I didn't think the dress would turn out like that. Thinking of this, Macaron wailed even louder. It's over for me, it's all gone. Suddenly, a hand appeared from nowhere and draped a vest over her. Macaron immediately stopped crying and turned to look at him. Prince Tat appeared like a faint glimmer of light, helping her brush away her sorrows. Seeing her, Tat scratched his head in embarrassment for suddenly doing that. Sorry, because the lady looked cold, so... The more she looked, the more familiar he seemed. This person is Crown Prince Tat. But now Macaron felt even more afraid. The person who was just beside Iklay, why is he here now? But she shook her head and told herself, snap out of it, Macaron. In her mind, a series of thoughts were racing. No, more importantly, when did he appear behind me? I didn't sense any sign of someone approaching at all, seeing that she said nothing next. He crossed his arms, tilted his head, and continued the conversation. Lady Spartan, right? Her cheeks turned slightly red and she had to cover them. So dazzling. At this moment, she regained her composure and began to introduce herself. I am Macaron Moonberry Spartan. Greetings, son of the Empire. He also smiled and introduced himself back. Your name is Macaron? Nice to meet you, my lady. I am Tat. I didn't know. The Spartan knight family had such a beautiful young lady. Hearing these words, Macaron seemed unaccustomed to them. Beautiful? Me? No way. Her footsteps were also a bit unsteady. Faced with such an unexpected compliment, why do I feel so flustered? Her head was still bowed. Macaron continued her salute and thanked him. Thank you, Your Highness. This is the first time someone has said that to me. Her eyes welled up with tears. He truly is a good person. His Highness chased after me just to give me his coat. It's like a dream. Suddenly, a call echoed from inside the castle. Your Highness, where are you? Your Highness. Macaron was startled and looked toward the other side. She suddenly pulled him into a corner, avoiding the gazes of everyone in the palace. At this moment, Tat wore a faint smile. Inside were shouts and cries, but outside he hoped Macaron could keep quiet. She only had time for a soft gasp. Try searching over there. Finally, they stood outside for a while. At last, Tat stepped closer to her and softly said, Thank you. Kind lady. Because of interacting with two men in a short time, Macaron was still not quite used to it. Before leaving, he waved goodbye enthusiastically. Even though it was only a few minutes, I had a lot of fun. See you again. Having said that, Tat snapped his fingers. Right before her eyes, only a trail of magic remained, while the crown prince was nowhere to be seen. Macaron looked around and marveled. What was that? Suddenly disappeared just like that. I heard the crown prince could use magic, but for him to be able to use the highest level of magic, spatial teleportation. But thinking back on just now, she couldn't help but feel a bit excited. His Highness is more wonderful than I imagined. I wish I could meet His Highness again. The more she thought about it, the more Macaron couldn't contain her heart. Her hand lightly squeezed the hem of her skirt. Macaron stood hesitating for a while. Will the day we meet again truly come? Under the starry sky in the forest, Ganet was taking a walk while holding the little dragon. A strange scent hit the dragon's nose. It immediately opened its eyes. Its alertness was also triggered. Looking into the distance, it caught his attention. What's wrong with you? Ganet also frowned and looked intently in the direction it was looking. Is there something over there? But a stream of pitch black magic up ahead also made Ganet take a few steps back. He also had to cover his nose. His whole body began to tremble with horror. A terrible stench. Why did a hole like this appear here? The dragon jumped from his arms and retreated several meters. Ganet was trying to approach the black hole. In the very next second, he immediately felt a strange sensation surrounding his arm. Looking at his arm starting to turn jagged black and darkening in color, he sat down on the ground in total fear. The little dragon was also put into a state of high alert, screaming Ganet's name. He raised his hand while trembling violently. My hand is rotting away. A second later, Ganet calmly used his salvation magic. The rotting arm began to stop its state. His whole body was immersed in a brilliant healing magic. But after a while, under the silent dark night, he began to realize the truth. Even if I put all my effort into using healing arts, this thing still continuously revives. This is a malicious disease. It cannot be eradicated with ordinary magic. I know the origin of this disease. Anyone who studies history knows it is an extremely horrifying disease. The Black Death. It makes the entire body rot and causes death. Slowly assuming that, it had completely disappeared from the continent, from 1,000 years ago. Yet I didn't expect this disease to spread to the new continent and multiply here. Ganet grit his teeth, reflecting that if this continues, 2/3 of the population in the new continent, without immunity, will die. Looking toward the black hole, he swallowed hard. I must find the hole where this malicious disease breeds, and concentrate even more healing energy. I cannot do this alone. Is there anyone I can ask for help? The young men, as soon as they saw Macaron, excitedly cried out, Hey, hey! Lady Macaron, you are truly beautiful today as well. You are the example for every lady to follow. No, please marry me. No, me! I will offer you an entire mansion, a carriage, and all the jewels and gems. Macaron. Macaron. The clock gradually turned and struck exactly 12. The dress on Macaron's body, for some reason, suddenly tore wide open. But before the eyes of the young men, the dress on her body gradually disappeared. She tightly closed her eyes and let out a very loud scream. A loud noise echoed. Macaron gradually opened her eyes and realized what just happened was only a dream. She looked up at the luxurious chandelier above her head, sighing to herself. Was it a dream? Macaron gradually sat up, her mood complicated as she thought. It has been a month since the day of the debut party. I was scolded severely by my father, and was punished by being confined to the mansion. At that time, the head of the Spartan family turned his head and said in disappointment, You have disappointed father too much. Macaron. In reality, Macaron sadly hugged her own body. The debut party ended in fulfillment. After that, nothing else happened. It's been surprisingly quiet. Another morning starts with a delicious cup of coffee being placed on the table. Macaron sat on a small chair. In her hand, she held a stack of documents, thinking to herself, It's been a month since I've checked the mail. From this month, Ekele has again become the cover model for the lady magazine. I am always the one left behind. Macaron suddenly noticed something in the magazine. A letter gradually appeared from behind the middle page of the magazine, making Macaron startled. Huh? Did someone send a letter to me? Macaron flipped the letter and saw a line of text. Saber Vanilla Mont Blanc. Macaron's hands and feet immediately became clumsy. Lord Saber sent a letter to me? What is this? When did he send it? On the letter were just a few lines written very carefully. I found it regrettable that the lady left. Before the two of us could greet and converse, I want to know about the lady's situation. Macaron's mind panicked as she thought to herself, for this whole month, I didn't even know and didn't write a reply letter at all. Just then, the maid suddenly pushed the door open and softly called, Ma'am. My lady, you have a visitor. After that, Macaron quickly and carefully put on her clothes, then went to the living room to welcome the guest visiting her, without knowing since when. Saber. was already sitting in the living room waiting for Macaron's appearance. She sat before him modestly, thinking to herself, Saber. At that moment, Saber spoke up. I didn't receive a reply letter. Macaron hesitantly answered. That mattered, ma'am. Because I was not feeling well, I haven't been able to read it yet. Saber's sharp eyes suddenly looked up at her, repeating, not feeling well. Macaron lied without even blinking. Yes, oh no, I accidentally made up such an obvious excuse. He suddenly spoke up and gave her a prescription. Precious medicine. I heard that if you decoct and drink herbs, growing on the cliffs of the Mont Blanc mountain range, it not only cures the flu, but it can also help the drinker withstand the cold of the north. Yes, next time I will send a letter along with some for the lady. Macaron was shy. She bowed her head politely and replied, Yes, thank you, my lord. You're sending it to me? Why? Saber's lips gently curled up as he whispered, Since the first time we met. Not a day goes by that I don't think about the lady. If you ask why, I don't know the reason either. I feel sorry for taking the liberty of coming here, while not having received a reply. Letter from the lady. However, I thought meeting the lady would give me the answer as to what exactly this emotion is. Macaron blushed in panic, screaming in her heart, Well, what is this? This must be... Please have some tea first. You've traveled a long way to get here. After that, Saber honestly replied, Yeah. It took a full 6 days by carriage to arrive. The answer immediately left Macaron in deep shock. It makes sense. Coming from the northern front back to the inner city. It probably takes about that much time. Macaron reached out her hand to take a pastry from the plate. Then she gently lifted it, taking a bite to calm her own spirit. From the corner of her eye, Macaron suddenly looked up as if noticing something. Saber, for some unknown reason, suddenly turned pale with an expression of intense pain. Macaron gently spoke up to check on Lord Saber. His hand at this very moment was also trembling violently. Macaron looked at Saber's strange appearance with great suspicion. His face darkened and sweat poured out like a stream as he sighed. The weight of this teacup is extraordinary. No matter how hard I try, I can't lift it. The food plate, the fork, everything is so heavy. The maids who carry these things, are they even human? Macaron spoke up once again to ask Lord Saber, Is the food not to your taste? Saber, startled, gently replied, No, it's not that. This teacup is not just heavy. He felt his entire body was trying its absolute best. All his strength right now was concentrated in the hand that was holding the teacup. Saber's hand trembled as he slightly raised the teacup, taking a deep drink and marveling to himself. As expected, it is made from a material that can only be lifted by channeling mana. Macaron now smiled happily, thinking to herself, It seems the tea is to his liking. I usually really enjoy gardening. This place is my greenhouse, and this is my favorite flower pot. She brought the flower pot over to him, suggesting, Please try smelling its fragrance. As soon as he took the flower pot, Saber immediately felt a massive weight transfer over. The vase fell down and instantly created a large hole right in the middle of the floor. Macaron, seeing that, cried out in a panic, Are you all right? Saber at that moment looked at his own hand, unable to hide his deep shock. I am sorry for dropping the flower pot. Macaron still cheerfully said, Oh, I'll just pick it up right away. Having said that, Macaron immediately bowed down, lifting the flower pot that was lying isolated on the ground. To Saber's astonishment, she happily dashed off, while carrying 2 large flower pots in her hands. Saber was stunned, telling himself, I must not be careless for even a single second. That afternoon, Macaron proudly introduced to Saber, at the age of 10, both males and females of the Spartan house must master swordsmanship. I also know how to use a sword a little bit, but if compared to Lord Saber, my strength is nothing at all. Saber took the sword and carefully remarked, This is also made from material that can only be held when using mana. Since everything in this house is made from material imbued with magic like that, she must constantly release mana in her daily life. He suddenly swung the sword toward Macaron. She looked at Saber in bewilderment, not understanding what was happening. Saber slowly stepped forward and said, The eldest son of the Mont Blanc family, Saber Vanilla Mont Blanc, would like to challenge the lady. Just how strong is her strength after all? Hearing that, Macaron became flustered. She cried out in fear. Huh? Wait, why so suddenly? Saber slowly stepped toward Macaron, in a state of readiness for combat. He gently reached out his hand, tying his hair back neatly to prepare for the battle. Macaron was not careless either, always gripping the sword firmly in the palm of her hand. Saber finally entered the fray forcefully. He leaned his body, his sharp eyes, staring intently at her as if wary of something. Saber's gaze gradually brightened as he thought, Just as I thought. Just holding the sword feels overwhelming already, yet she holds it as if it were nothing. A testament to her ceaseless training. Saber is truly very interesting, Macaron. He quickly took the initiative to leap up and strike before Macaron. Concentrating fully, she prepared to welcome Saber's attack. A gust of wind rushed past and Macaron's figure gradually disappeared following each sharp sword stroke. Saber widened his eyes, dazed when he could not identify where she was. Macaron somehow managed to swing her sword right behind his back. Saber slowly turned his head, but her sword was already very close to him. Within an inch, Saber quickly raised his sword to defend. But the weight from the sword still made him weary enough to stagger. After attacking once, Macaron quickly retreated far away. Saber was shocked, thinking to himself, "Wait, what was that? When did she get behind me?" Macaron, on this side, also had a blank look on her face, thinking. Strange, Saber once again took the initiative to attack. His actions seemed to further confirm her thoughts. Macaron thought, it really is strange. I can see through Lord Saber's sword path. Her eyes narrowed, focusing more than ever before. A strange thought suddenly surfaced in her mind. Is he doing this on purpose? Compared to the practice sessions with my father, this match is like child's play. But Macaron pulled back her sword, returning to a defensive stance without striking back anymore. If I win too easily, it will hurt his pride. A sword was struck, flying straight into the air. Yes. Then it plunged straight into the ground behind Macaron's back. She secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Sword dropped naturally. I lost. Saber firmly replied, no. The lady had more than enough strength to block me, but did not do so. This way of faking a loss is no different from deceiving your opponent. Fight me with your true strength. Saber gripped the sword tightly and looked steadily at her. Macaron was unsettled by that overwhelming source of power. She looked up as if she had just understood something. Saber's steadfast back made a thought pop into her head, more than wanting to save face for the opponent. Saber raised his hand and forcefully swung a sword toward her. Macaron's eyes finally entered the match with true seriousness. She moved forward powerfully with the thought. Then the important thing is sincerity. The depths of her eyes. Macaron was now filled with sparks that burned brightly. The loud noise echoed throughout the mansion. A sword was finally struck far away. Saber turned his head and froze for a moment. Macaron still firmly held her sword in her hand. Suddenly, something caught her eye. Saber's face. At this moment, had a cut on it, causing blood to start flowing from there. He let out a sigh with mournful eyes. Then Saber held out his scraped hand and stared intently at it. He suddenly laughed faintly. Ha! Saber suddenly knelt on the ground with a blank face. Seeing this, Macaron cried out in worry. Oh, my lord! Lord Saber, are you injured anywhere? I must call a doctor. Saber exclaimed in a low voice, interrupting her. As expected, this feeling is definitely that. I have something important to say to the lady. Macaron blushed and repeated in bewilderment. Something to say? Could it be? Saber blushed. He bowed his head and shouted resolutely. Macaron, I officially propose. He tightly gripped Macaron's small hands. She looked at them in shock, unable to pull away. But contrary to the thoughts in her heart. Macaron, Saber sincerely cried out, please become my master. The atmosphere became strange with Macaron's astonishment. Huh? That evening, the head of the Spartan family was walking in the quiet hallway. He suddenly heard a shout from someone over there. Huff, huff. This time I will definitely win. Wait, not yet. Take this. The head of the Spartan family saw that scene and exclaimed in bewilderment, oh? Outside, Macaron helplessly suggested, Lord Saber, let's stop now. But the sparring match lasted until late at night, then until the next morning. Macaron panted wearily. Huff, 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 huff. Saber was no better, as he was covered in dirt and sand. Everywhere. Ha! Ha! Macaron quickly shouted to remind him, Lord Saber. It's already morning. Shouldn't you be heading back? But Saber shouted resolutely, I cannot stop here. Macaron heard all the pent-up emotions from yesterday suddenly erupt. She frustratedly kicked Saber away. Go home for me, please, as he was kicked out. Seriously, it's beyond words. How? Can a man and a woman practice sparring all night like that? I was a fool to look forward to the Grand Duke of the North, who is majestic and awe-inspiring in the rumors. Compared to what I thought, he is much more bizarre than that. A hand suddenly placed on Macaron's head and rubbed it gently. The head of the Spartan family softly remarked, You have a good friend, Macaron. Having someone who has feelings of affection for you is not an easy thing. Be proud of yourself. Macaron heard this. The corners of her eyes began to glisten with red cheeks. Macaron muttered to herself, I have the affection of Lord Saber? Saber Vanilla, Mont Blanc, the eldest son of the Mont Blanc house, the Knight family of the North. He was Macaron's first friend, the young lady with extraordinary strength, recorded in history. Later on, Master! Macaron enjoyed her snacks deliciously. She suddenly went blank when she saw something outside the window. The light of the moon outside left Macaron in astonishment, exclaiming, "The moon is so bright today, just like the day I met that person." The image of Ganet that day suddenly appeared in her head. He said with a warm voice, "I'll come to visit next time. Thank you for today." Ganet's warm smile made Macaron's mind unable to stop wavering until this very moment. I wonder if he is looking at the sky like me. I said I would come to visit. And yet, I don't know if that day to meet and say thank you will ever come. There was a sound coming from outside. Is something there? A hand gripped the balcony, making Macaron back away in fear. That dark shadow quickly jumped in from the balcony, leaving Macaron no time to react. Just as she regained her senses, Macaron quickly screamed out, "Ah!" Someone, the dark shadow, carrying a lamp, still maintaining that position without saying a word. Macaron furrowed her brows in anger. Her face darkened as she growled, "How dare you crawl in here? You've got a lot of nerve." Another loud noise echoed, and that stranger, under the powerful foot of the female knight Macaron, fell and rolled across the floor. She turned her head to look at that person and wondered, "Passed out already?" Before he's escorted away, let's see what his face looks like. Macaron reached out her hand to grab the person's mask and lifted it. As soon as Macaron removed the mask, she stared curiously at the mysterious person. Only then did she realize in shock, "Oh, Ganet, why are you here?" Ganet was lying unconscious on the bed. Meanwhile, Macaron stood beside him, confusedly rubbing her hands. She awkwardly thought, "What should I do? I'm afraid of being suspected, so I can't call anyone else." Before I could even ask why he came here, I went and knocked him out. Macaron wondered to herself. The Terran family is in the east. To travel here must take a full 3 days. Did something happen? Finally, she made up her mind to go get a wet towel. First, remembering that the maid could cause a commotion. I will do this silently. Afterward, she carried over a basin of clean water. On the way, Macaron noticed a room. She curiously peeked through the door to look. Thinking back, before her eyes was a tall cabinet full of books. It seems like there's material about Terran in the library. Scanning through them, Macaron picked out a book. Here it is. She cautiously flipped open each page. Terran, the master of the territory located east of the imperial city. Macaron's lips suddenly tightened. A cursed family. Enveloping the Terran territory are all kinds of diseases. Plants, trees, and all kinds of living creatures cannot survive. A desolate environment that has lasted for hundreds of years. The imperial city put effort into controlling the epidemic, but in the end, they had to give up. Terran even disappeared from the annual festival. It is believed that the source of all diseases comes from illegal human experiments conducted by the Terran family. Macaron's expression became increasingly sad. According to historical records, the Terran are extremely cruel people. Ganet's quiet, sleeping face appeared in her mind. Khi quay lại, cô quan sát anh một lần nữa. Ganesh không thể là người xấu. Macaron vừa vặt nước trong chiếc khăn vừa tự nhủ. Khi mình gặp khó khăn, anh ấy đã ra tay giúp đỡ mình. Cô nhớ lại từng lần được anh hỗ trợ. Tuy bản thân có chút bất an, nhưng nếu không nhờ có Ganache, tôi đã không thể đặt chân đến bữa tiệc ra mắt. Bất chợt cô phát hiện ra thứ gì đó. Macaron thấm kêu lên trong lòng Ganache bị rung lông mi. Cô cúi thấp người xuống hơn chút lông mi anh ấy dài ghê. Nét mặt dịu dàng nhưng đầy cuốn hút. Bàn tay cô bất giác vươn ra mình nên phủi đi sợi lông mi. Đúng lúc này Ganesh tỉnh dậy. Macaron bị anh làm giật mình đến đứng hình tại chỗ. Trong lúc luống cuống, cô lại vô tình làm ra việc gì đó không hay cho lắm. Giây phút sau, Macaron đã than thở ngồi bên suy sụp, chắc điên mất theo phán xạ. Lại làm người ta ngất xíu nữa rồi. Cô lúng túng đưa khăn đến trước mặt Ganesh. Tôi xin lỗi, chắc anh đau lắm. Đang nói dơ thì một thứ ánh sáng phát ra khiến cô im bặt. Đó là ánh sáng từ cây gậy của Ganesh. Nhưng thứ ánh sáng tỏa ra từ đâu? Cây gậy có vẻ không được bình thường. Macaron cũng trở nên bất an đom đóm đang mất đi sinh mệnh. Xung quanh Ganesh bỗng xuất hiện những đốm sáng lấp lòe. Những đốm sáng hiện ra càng lúc càng nhiều. Macaron cầm chiếc khăn lên. Terran gia tộc bị nguyền rủa gieo rắc dịch bệnh ở đại lục. Không một sinh mệnh nào có thể tồn tại trong lãnh địa của họ. Những dòng thông tin trong sách đang chạy lại trong đầu cô. Cây cối cơ lá và cả động vật. Điều này tuy được cho là do lời nguyền giáng xuống gia tộc Terran, nhưng trên thực tế, họ là người hấp thụ sinh mệnh để chữa lành cho sinh mệnh khác. Macaron đơ người xem điều kỳ diệu đang diễn ra. Đây nên gọi là tuyệt vời. Trần Ganex nắm lấy cổ tay cô hay đáng sợ. Anh đã tỉnh lại một lần nữa. Lần này Macaron vẫn thấy hốt hoang. Ganet đã gọi tên cô Macaron. Anh ngồi dậy nhỏ nhẹ hỏi đây là. Bỗng Ganet ôm lấy đầu vì đau. Hành động của anh khiến Macaron phát hoảng. Kia anh ổn không, anh đau lắm phải không? Sau đó cô nhẹ nhàng giải thích đây là phòng của tôi. You've been sleeping for quite a while. But Ganet seriously corrected her. It wasn't sleeping. I was knocked out by you. Before he could finish his sentence, Macaron cleared her throat and interrupted. Next, she crossed her arms and questioned him back. By the way, What kind of man wears a suspicious mask, then breaks into a girl's room in the middle of the night? Is that so? This action of yours is nothing but rude, isn't it? He remained silent and hesitated upon hearing Macaron's question. Why did you come to find me in the middle of the night? Only much later did he answer, I came because I need help. Ganet began, do you have paper and a pen? Macaron quickly replied, Immediately after, she brought the items to him. Ganet spoke while writing. Currently, the continent is in a critical situation because a major calamity is about to strike. He drew a deep, dark hole. That thing is a black hole that pollutes everything. It causes creatures that touch it to become infected and rot away. Mana is flowing out from the black hole I mentioned. To put it accurately, it is a source of contaminated mana that once floated deep underground. Ganet looked up at her. Mana circulates everywhere in the world. You know that basic knowledge, right? Within the last few hundred years, many wars, large and small, between powers and families have broken out. Macaron nodded in agreement. I heard that from my history teacher. Ganet's eyes narrowed, appearing serious. Because of those wars, countless people lost their lives. In just 1 year, the bodies of thousands of victims were buried in the ground, without even having a grave. Underground, a series of decompositions occurred. The number of microorganisms skyrocketed, causing an imbalance in the soil. Ganet slowly explained everything in detail. The problem arose right here. The pure mana source that once flowed underground encountered a massive amount of blood that had rotted and created an abnormal reaction. The result is a mana source with the power to rot everything, and now it has overflowed onto the surface. Hearing this, Macaron seemed to find it hard to believe. I don't understand why it turned out like that. Mana causing an abnormal reaction? Ganet shook his head in disagreement. Some say this phenomenon is caused by the resentment of the victims. His eyes cast downward, but as a physician, I have verified that this is a disease. He placed a hand over his chest to show his sincerity. We must keep this black hole away from everyone. His hand tightened into a fist. If necessary, I will treat anyone with the healing power I possess. Macaron, you possess physical strength more terrifying than a dragon's, and the power of self-recovery. Ganet leaned closer to Macaron. If we join forces, we can stop the Black Death from spreading across the continent. Ganet looked straight into Macaron's eyes, proposing, will you become my source of healing? The sudden request left Macaron momentarily stunned. Both fell into silence for a few seconds. Then Macaron tentatively asked, you mean you want to use my extraordinary strength as a healing bridge? She appeared worried. I find it a bit scary and a little hesitant. Ganet immediately bowed his head. I understand. Suddenly, Macaron spoke up again. Ganet, what can you give me? Ganet's eyes suddenly widened upon hearing that, but he did not hesitate for a moment as he answered. Ganet said, without hesitation, that he would give her himself. I promise to take care of you for the rest of your life. If you are injured, sick, or in danger, I will always be by your side to rescue you. Hearing this, Macaron's eyes rounded and her entire body froze. What is this? These words? Can he really say them so directly? That's not what I want. But I also don't want to live beside you for a long time. How can I say it without feeling embarrassed? At the same time, Ganet broke into a slight cold sweat. So, what do you want? Money, fame, or a political marriage? As soon as the words were out, Ganet was immediately punched hard in the face by his opponent. What are you saying? Where did he get that kind of deduction from anyway? Seriously, I've made him faint again. I'm going crazy, I don't know anymore. At this time, the sky was still a dark night. The crescent moon cast weak rays of light onto the mansion. Scene changes as another new day arrives. Mering gently opened the room door. My lady, it is time to wake. Before the words could even be finished, she saw on the bed a scene of a man and a woman lying together. A moment later, Macaron's mood was filled with resentment as she bowed her head low. Then she sat on the bed and spoke up in confusion. Mering, I'm counting on you. Please help me keep this a secret from my father. Upon hearing this, the other party immediately agreed. I understand, my lady. You don't need to ask me so earnestly. At this point, Macaron began to laugh it off and explain. We are just friends, okay? Nothing happened at all. While the other person also tried to listen. Yes, yes, yes. The atmosphere between the two became full of awkwardness. Macaron looked at Mering's crumpled expression and thought, it seems like she doesn't believe it. At the same time, the other party suddenly lowered her gaze and spoke in a deep voice. Even so, along with the friend who came to visit not long ago, I am very glad that my lady. Macaron has become more cheerful than before. As the words fell, Macaron quietly called, Mering, but the other party switched to another matter. I will bring breakfast to the room, in secret, of course. Meanwhile, Macaron's entire body froze stiff. Don't be like that. In another spot, Ganet silently looked at her with a gentle smile, but in a different development. Macaron looked at the dining table full of rustic dishes and showed great interest. Thank you, Mering. Hearing this, Mering immediately pointed her finger to the sky. Surely my lady has heard. Starting this afternoon, the master will go to train in another land for a few days. Since your friend is staying here, why don't the two of you go sightseeing around the territory together? The weather is changing seasons too. You could buy new plant seeds and go shopping as well. Macaron quickly widened her eyes in excitement. That sounds good. Ganet, do you want to go out? At this time, the large mansion was flooded with sunlight. The heavy doors were flung open. Ganet stood beside Macaron, helping her down from the carriage. Before them was a bustling scene of people passing by and lively trading. Macaron walked while looking around and introducing the place. This side sells handicrafts. Over there is a famous pawn shop. As for the antique shop, suddenly, Ganet unexpectedly felt that something wasn't quite right. Something is very strange. Rarely does anyone on the street recognize her, even though she is the master of the territory. Immediately, Macaron did not hesitate to admit, "That's because I don't appear frequently, in front of everyone." These words made Ganet unable to help but wonder why. After hearing that, she still slowly replied, "It's just that I'm afraid of judgmental looks. I am not noble enough compared to the ladies in other territories." Then Ganet, walking beside her, asked directly, "Are you afraid people will call you a barbarian?" Macaron displayed soulless eyes at this moment, as if her secret thoughts had been hit right on the mark. Meanwhile, Ganet still tried his best to reassure her. "I can understand that feeling." Afterward, the two once again walked along the street. Understand. In another development, blooming flower pots were placed on the shelves. The two of them looked at them for a long time. Macaron looked at the flower pot in her hand and smiled slightly. Ganet, by her side, also held a pot in his hand and smiled along with her. Suddenly, his intuition told him something was wrong. Behind Ganet's back, a grotesque person in black appeared. Immediately, he hurriedly stood up. The other person also kept looking toward Ganet. He stepped closer to where he was. Neither of them said a word. In the meantime, Macaron was still unaware of what was happening. She looked up and asked Ganet, "What's wrong?" Just as the words fell. His face was full of worry. "I must chase after that person." Hearing this, Macaron felt as if she were stunned. Her eyes became soulless. She began to run fast, chasing after the man in black. Ganet could only look at her back and exclaim, "So fast!" Macaron's footsteps were extremely firm, but ahead, that man still tried to escape. However, Macaron was already right behind him. She grabbed the corner of the opponent's clothes. Macaron shouted coldly, "Caught you!" The two began to struggle. "Release me, stay still." At this moment, the man pulled out a sword hidden in his cloak. "I said, let me go!" However, she was still able to dodge it easily. Macaron was extremely angry, growling, "This old man." She lifted the man high off the ground. His whole body emitted a rotting scent. Macaron couldn't stand it and threw the opponent to the ground. What an unpleasant smell. Suddenly, Ganet's voice unexpectedly called out, "Macaron!" Two hands reached out from behind. Ganet pulled her into his arms to stop her. "Don't touch him. It's the Black Death. At the Castella Imperial City, a man knelt before the throne to report, "Your Majesty, recently there have been opinions suggesting that we should reform the drainage system because the daily water supply is becoming seriously polluted. The groundwater veins in the western region have turned into foul water long ago. More and more citizens are seeking medical help at clinics because of stomach pains from drinking that polluted water. Sewage rats and insects are breeding rapidly in the drain pipes. If we leave it like this, during the rainy season, the wastewater will overflow outside." Hearing this, the king wearing his crown turned to ask his son, "Tat, tell me your opinion." Immediately, the other party gently replied, "Yes, Your Majesty. We need to build dikes to handle the wastewater overflowing before the summer. At the same time, increase the manpower for cleaning the sewers so that the wastewater treatment process can take place quickly." However, I think everyone already knew this answer beforehand. Why do you have to come all the way here to present a petition? Do you all think the Imperial City is a place for you to kill time? Hearing this, the person still kneeling on the ground answered in great fear, "Actually, I have a more important matter than that to report to you. In several territories, managers are going missing after going down into the sewers." As the words fell, Tat narrowed his eyes and his voice deepened. Was it not an accident or a deliberate escape due to personal issues? At this point, the commoner looked up and continued, "The number of missing persons can already be counted on 10 fingers. We need to investigate what is happening underground. I beg you to deploy the troops, Your Majesty." Meanwhile, Tat rested his chin on his hand and remained silent for a long while. In another development, evening had arrived. A maid was helping Tat take off his clothes. His body revealed rippling muscles and firm six-pack abs. His feet slowly touched the crystal clear water in the bathtub. He soaked himself in it, feeling incredibly refreshed. In his left hand, he held a glass of unfinished wine. Then Tat brought it to his mouth and took a small sip. Suddenly, from outside, there was the voice of the maid. Your Highness. This afternoon, the young lady of the Castella house sent a letter. He immediately turned his head. Eckley? The letter was quickly opened. To the respected Crown Prince, Your Highness. Your Highness, it is Ecklo, your little bluebird, here. Have you been well lately, Your Highness? Please, Your Highness, spare a little of your precious time, so that I may pay my respects to you. Looking forward to your reply, Eckley. Tat stared intently at the lines of text. Then, showing no interest, he tossed it aside. The flames flared up, incinerating the handwritten letter. Tat's face darkened as he watched the scene before him. Just like fireworks. Afterward, he sat down once again, his hand swirling the glass of wine on the table. Tat took another sip of wine. His face displayed a look of deep contemplation. Tat thought of Macaron again. He sat in the middle of the silent, noiseless room. A train of thought popped into Tat's head. Why hasn't she come back to return the cloak to me? Does she hate coming to see me? At the same time, his hand continued to unconsciously swirl the glass. His foot couldn't help but tap several times. Suddenly he looked. He looked toward the door and spoke. Is someone there? Immediately the maid entered and replied, Yes, Your Highness. Then he immediately ordered, Send a letter to the Spartan family. In another development, Ganet was still holding Macaron to stop her. Don't touch him. It's the Black Death. Hearing that, she quickly became panicked. Black Death? The stench is overpowering. Meanwhile, the man trembled, his face bewildered as he spoke. What do you people want from me, chasing me? I was just passing through here. I am not a plague. I just don't feel well in my body, that's all. Everyone says that. If the people of the Imperial City discover us, everyone will be killed. Who are you people? Are you from the Imperial City? Please don't kill me. I will do everything I am told. As the words fell, Ganet slowly reached out his hand to comfort him. Rest assured, because I am a physician. Scene changes to a dilapidated housing area, where an atmosphere of mourning overflows. Countless people are sitting on the roadside. A mother is trying to soothe her crying child. The two followed the man in the black cloak into that place. Macaron looked left and right, her face in shock, unable to believe it. But in the Spartan territory, is there a place like this? At this moment, those people were constantly buzzing with chatter. Who are they? The clothes they are wearing seem to be of noble people. At the same time, the man leading the way suddenly reached out his hand and said, Everyone, please listen to me. These people are physicians. They have come to cure us. Hearing this, they could not contain their joy and rushed forward. Is it true? No way. Can this disease really be cured? Macaron was pushed hard and clutched her chest in pain. Seeing this, Ganet stood as a shield in front of her. Everyone, don't push. Doing so makes it very difficult for us. Please line up in order. I will treat each person. But the crowd did not seem to listen to him. Can you really cure this disease? My child is in pain. Please help. Please. Ganet also felt helpless, not knowing what to say. Suddenly, from behind, there was a shout, Everyone, be quiet! Macaron lifted a massive cart up, with only one hand. Then she slammed it down hard onto the ground. This action left everyone stunned. Ganet called out, Macaron, in full astonishment, while she, at this moment, pointed toward the east, ordering, Everyone, calm down and line up in order. One by one, each person approached Ganet. He opened his palm, letting the golden light shine upon the black marks on the patient's elbow. Macaron stood nearby watching, unable to help feeling worried. The 10th person already, he looks very exhausted. Suddenly, Ganet unexpectedly closed his eyes. His body, no longer having the strength to support itself, collapsed. Seeing that, Macaron hurriedly rushed over to support him. Ganet, are you okay? When she heard the other party still mumbling, the patient. Macaron couldn't help but scold him, her eyes looking as if she were about to cry. You idiot, what good will it do if you collapse? At the same time, the black marks were gradually being destroyed. A person raised his hand and said, The Black Death. It's gradually disappearing. Hearing this, Macaron was extremely happy, her mouth forming a delighted smile. Then she turned back to the physician. Ganet, your healing worked. Ganet! Ganet! In his subconscious, a small injured bird lay waiting to die on the ground. But Ganet looked at it intently. Then he used his medical arts to heal the little bird. Inside the room, Ganet sat on the bed in silence, saying nothing. He used his hand to touch and examine that tiny creature. Afterward, Ganet's cheeks flushed as he smiled with satisfaction. Suddenly, a sound came from outside. The door was gradually opened. A bandaged hand reached in, along with a gentle call, Ganet. The hand gently touched him. It touched Ganet's small, handsome face. He stood motionless and unconsciously called out, Mother. Then Ganet coughed slightly a few times. Seeing this, the other party quickly deduced, Did you save a life without a medium again? Remember this well, Ganet. The weight of a life is immense. Do not take the power you possess lightly. The price you must pay is equivalent to the weight of the life that was saved. You absolutely must not pay that price with your own life. Do you understand? You could lose your life because of your compassion. At times like those, remember that you cannot save every single life. You are a physician, not a hero. Having said that, that hand slowly withdrew from Ganet's face. She continued, perhaps this matter is too heavy for a child like you to fully understand. But Ganet couldn't help but be moved, tears streaming down. He bowed his head and admitted, Mother, I miss Father. However, that hand moved further and further away. A voice overflowing with love echoed, the people who have died cannot return. Mother, Ganet, my poor son, but can you come here? Has your cough gotten any better? Immediately, Ganet, lying in the arms of the other, replied, Yes, Mother. Only then did he slowly open his eyes. His eyes were still very pensive. Beside the bed was Macaron fast asleep. But Ganet quietly looked at her without saying a word. Then he suddenly sat up in confusion. Damn it! I saw it again. She, still feeling a bit sleepy, said, Ganet, you're awake? While the other was a bit restless. Macaron, how long have I been lying here? Then Macaron simply answered the truth. You've been unconscious for 2 days, making Ganet freeze. What? So what about the patients? Suddenly, his head began to ache more. Macaron once again tried to support him. Ganet, are you okay? Afterward, she helped him lie down on the bed. Macaron tucked Ganet in while reassuring him. The patients have recovered and returned to their homes, so you can rest assured and relax. She continued to sit on the chair, watching over Ganet. A moment later, Macaron gently stood up. She opened the door and walked out into the hallway. Macaron's mind was filled with constant thoughts. The very moment Ganet collapsed, the patients who had been hopeful for a cure immediately became silent. But hope and joy did not last long. The ground suddenly cracked open. Countless streams of black gas escaped from there, rising into the air. One of the infected people began to tremble uncontrollably. He panicked and rushed forward to escape. Meanwhile, those streams of gas also constantly attacked the crowd of infected people. Seeing that, Macaron looked at Ganet, who had no strength left to resist. She threw him over her shoulder and ran. I have to run. They left behind the black gas as it acted willfully. Macaron turned her head to look back in great worry. With only the strength of the two of us, we cannot resolve this matter. Returning to reality, she turned toward the desk. On it was a letter with the title, To Lady Macaron. She slowly and carefully opened it. The Crown Prince sent a letter. Perhaps this is the opportunity. Macaron immediately wrote a reply. She was extremely focused on completing the letter with a plea for help. Scene changes. Tat intently reads the lines inside. To the dear Crown Prince, Your Highness. I have an item I would like to return to Your Highness. Could you spare some time for me? Reading this, Tat couldn't help but cover his mouth and laugh with delight. He seemed to have predicted the result exactly as he thought. On the floor were countless letters thrown about haphazardly. The maid happily looked at the blonde boy sitting on the chair and said, These are the letters, and chocolates sent to Your Highness for this year's Thanksgiving. Shall I read each one to you? But the other party did not care in the slightest. No need, throw them all away. The maid could only open her eyes wide in shock. Afterward, that person looked at the properly wrapped gift and said once more, Your Highness, the chocolates from the Castard House have also arrived. Is that so? I recall it has been a long time since we last heard news from Lady Eclair. As expected of my Crown Prince, Your Highness, you are truly popular. Perhaps the lady still holds feelings of admiration for the Crown Prince, Your Highness. Meanwhile, Tat smiled slightly, thinking, just as I thought. No one can refuse me. Scene changes. Macaron is wearing a magnificent dress. She stands before the Crown Prince's palace gate and speaks. I have come to the Imperial Palace again. A moment later, Macaron unconsciously looks to one side, seeing Tat standing there waiting for her. A train of thought immediately pops into her head. Currently, this country has no prime minister because of the Crown Prince, the person who handles the Empire's administration alongside the Emperor, my father. The Empire is still standing strong. Since the Crown Prince began participating in politics, the Empire has achieved brilliant development throughout the past 8 years. Not only is he noble and refined, he is also skilled in both the arts and martial skills, making all the people of the Empire unable to help but love him. However, rumors of romances with young ladies appear constantly, making the citizens curious about whom he will marry. If the Empire's high society knew about this, I might even get pelted with stones. Just thinking about it is exhausting. I wonder where this scent is coming from. Suddenly, the old butler, walking in front, unexpectedly calls out, This way, my lady. Immediately, Macaron's eyes suddenly began to glisten. Before her was a rose garden in full bloom. Macaron couldn't help but look around in admiration. It turns out, the scent in the hallway came from this flower. Does a flower like this exist in the world? This appearance and scent are so beautiful. But why does it feel so familiar to me? At this moment, footsteps approached from behind. It seems the lady is very interested in flowers. Macaron was quickly drawn to the sound. She turned her head to look. Seeing Tat had appeared behind her at some point. Your Highness, the Crown Prince. The daughter of the Spartan house greets the son of the Empire. Hearing this, Tat laughed happily. Today, the lady is as radiant as a little berry. Your appearance is very beautiful. Macaron placed her hand on her chest and smiled shyly. Thank you, Your Highness. Then Tat suddenly changed the subject. This is a flower variety bred by the royal family. It doesn't have a name yet. Then he plucked a branch and handed it to her. Tat spoke slowly and calmly. If you like it, I will make a bouquet to give to the lady. Seeing this, Macaron made a pitying face. She held it close to her heart and exclaimed, plucking it is such a pity. No need. The scent of this flower is indeed very fragrant. There's something very nostalgic about it. It seems I've smelled this scent somewhere before. Hearing this, Tat looked extremely surprised. Is that so? This flower variety has not been officially announced to the public yet. Macaron seemed to realize she had let something slip. It's just my feeling, Your Highness. Please don't mind it. Tat then gently replied. Is that how it is? Did the lady throw away my cloak? Coming all the way to this place? Immediately, Macaron denied it. No, I already gave the cloak to the servant earlier. But Tat still smiled kindly and explained. Actually, it wouldn't have been a problem even if the lady didn't bring it. I wanted to see Lady Macaron again. Through a short conversation, by intuition, they both realized they were completely different from each other. They sat opposite each other, laughing happily without ceasing. Because of that, they were drawn to each other even more. Macaron knew well that she shouldn't have these feelings. After a fleeting sweet moment, Macaron remembered the reason why she was here. Macaron set her teacup down and said, Your Highness, I have something I want to tell you. A wicked disease of unknown origin is spreading in the Spartan territory. Hearing this, Tat, holding a fork in his hand, looked a bit puzzled. A wicked disease? Macaron then continued to explain. Yes, I realize that, by our family alone. We cannot resolve this issue. We need the assistance of the royal family. I had planned to resolve this matter with Earl Terran, from the east, but we do not have enough strength. Tat became slightly pensive. Terran? Do you mean Lord Ganet, the heir of Terran? A family famously known as plague physicians. Upon hearing that, Macaron was a bit surprised. Your Highness knows Ganet? Tat did not hesitate to speak directly. It would be strange not to know him. Isn't that the family that was once demoted and pushed to the far eastern region because of inhumane medical research? That disregarded life? Could it be that he is accompanying the lady in the territory? At this point, Macaron immediately became flustered. What about that? Is this matter that serious? Suddenly, Tat placed the fork back on the food plate. Even if an epidemic were to break out in the lady's territory, why would he accept the risk to resolve such a significant matter? With only the lady? The sweat on Macaron's face poured down even more. Your Highness, I am fine. This was my decision. Hearing this, Tat looked very concerned. The lady must have been very distressed. The royal family will step forward to investigate this incident, so the lady does not need to worry. Macaron could not hide her emotions and stood up abruptly. Are you telling the truth? Thank you, Your Highness. Truly, thank you very much, Your Highness. Great. With this, Ganet can reduce his burden, right? Meanwhile, Tat, sitting opposite her, gave a gentle smile. Gradually, night fell. Macaron stood up. Then I shall take my leave. Tat said nothing, only waved his hand in farewell. Seeing that, Macaron felt a bit awkward. May I visit this place again? Immediately, Tat seemed very willing. Of course, as many times as you like. Afterward, he stood there watching Macaron's back fade away. Tat just stared at her intently without saying a word. In another development, Macaron walked through the hallway, with its luxurious interior. Black hair suddenly brushed past nearby. Macaron couldn't contain her curiosity and sniffed around searching. It was two girls also wearing elegant outfits. Macaron opened her eyes wide. She looked at the person in surprise and called out, Ikle! All three of them met in the spacious hallway. Macaron was the first to speak. Hello? Meanwhile, Ekle seemed to have little sympathy, snapping grumpily. What are you doing here? Did you have a private meeting with the Crown Prince? As for Jujube, she could only look at the other two in silence. At this point, Macaron explained with a heart full of worry. It's a long story. Today is the first time I've come here. However, Ekle maintained that same dissatisfied attitude. Once a month, I have a regular tea party with the Crown Prince, and today is that day, whatever the matter is. I hope you don't do anything. That causes my schedule and my mood to be upset. I'm leaving. Only Macaron and Jujube remained in the hallway. Macaron kept looking at the receding back of the girl from the Castache family. Ikle looks very angry. I didn't mean to get in her way. At the same time, Jujube slowly stepped closer to her. Immediately, Macaron also noticed and turned her head to look at the other. After a while, Jujube slowly said, "Long time no see, Macaron." Hearing that, she couldn't contain her surprise. Eyes wide open. Jujube. It's very rare to see Jujube start a conversation with me first. The one and only Jujube Clot Crescendo, the young lady of the Crescendo family. A family that went bankrupt with only the name remaining. When the research results of the late Count Crescendo, who was once famous for his discoveries in alchemy, were exposed as false, her family was forced to pay a massive amount of compensation to the sponsoring organizations. And finally, the family collapsed because they highly valued the previous contributions of the Crescendo family. Fortunately, the royal family did not strip away the title. But when life became impoverished, to the point that she could not even call herself a noble, Crescendo sent the sole heir to be adopted by the Castart family, the wealthiest family in the empire. That child was Jujube. Returning to reality, Jujube was a bit incredulous. She asked with a gentle smile, "Do you still remember me?" Leaving Macaron startled. How could I not remember? You're always by Ikle's side, so why aren't you inside? Jujube did not hesitate to answer directly. Because this tea party is for the two of them, not for me. Macaron was extremely surprised. So you're standing here waiting? Jujube still calmly replied. It's fine. Just looking at the royal family makes me happy. At this moment, Macaron's cheeks suddenly flushed red. Then she quickly extended an invitation. If possible, would you like to take a walk with me? To help digest the tea and cakes I just ate. But the only response to Macaron was the other's smiling face. This action left her a bit confused. Why are you laughing? Jujube then calmly replied, It's nothing. I just realized. This is the first time we've spoken privately like this. Macaron walked beside her, looking at the other person for a long while. Then she turned her face in another direction again. Is that so? Jujube, if possible, the next time. Macaron suddenly remembered the sunset's rays. The thing she had missed by staying indoors all the time was warmer than she thought. The sky had already turned to night. A perfectly round moon hung suspended over the mansion. Macaron stood by the door and spoke softly. Ganet, I'm back. Wait, where did he go? Seeing this, she hurriedly ran out of the room. Then she happened upon a maid passing by. She quickly asked, Mering, have you seen Ganet anywhere? Immediately, the other party still calmly replied, That gentleman is perhaps... The sky by now was full of stars. The flower garden was submerged in silence. Macaron walked while peeking around. Suddenly, her eyes brightened unexpectedly. Macaron saw Ganet with his eyes closed. He was sitting on a small armchair in the middle of the garden. Macaron carried a flower pot and approached Ganet. Are you asleep? Ganet. His features are as soft as fresh chocolate. Surely people on other continents would find it funny when they hear the names in the new continent, because in the new continent, there is a custom that believes naming someone after food will help them live long and be healthy. The hope and wish for someone's happiness, hidden behind these funny names, will also be passed on, and the story told will touch the hearts of generations to come. Macaron touched the back of his hand. She knelt on the ground, looking up at the other. I believe in you, Ganet. Ganet is someone capable of helping others. A true healer. I also want to become a source of strength for Ganet. I want to protect the Spartan territory from that terrifying black disease of unknown origin, even if I have to use all the power I possess. Suddenly, her face became alarmed. Macaron unconsciously looked into the palm of her hand. What is this? This empty feeling. Then, not understanding why, she slammed her elbow hard against the wall. Afterward, Macaron fell down to the ground. At the same time, Ganet suddenly opened his eyes. He sat up in complete astonishment. Macaron, what is with that posture? On the ground, Macaron's eyes were strangely soulless. Her face was covered in cold sweat. I want to know that too. My body suddenly has no strength left. Meanwhile, Ganet kept staring at her. Ganet looked at the person lying on the ground. Macaron, are you okay? The other could only lie motionless, emitting a few groans from her mouth. Lying with her arms and legs spread out, she replied, My body has no more strength. At this point, Mering also came running hurriedly. My lady, are you okay? Are you okay? At the same moment, Macaron's entire body was lifted up. She called out Ganet in great surprise. They left under Mering's bewildered gaze. She still didn't understand what was happening. Ganet slowly glanced at her and said, I will take her back to her room. Sunlight shone through the window cracks. Macaron lay on the bed being examined. Ganet intently checked her pulse. He used 2 fingertips to touch Macaron's artery. In the meantime, she could only quietly look at the man before her. After a while, Ganet slowly let go of her hand. He tilted his head slightly, still healthy, making Macaron unable to believe it. No way. Ganet placed his hand on his chin in contemplation as he slowly explained. Perhaps I used Macaron's power as a medium, so that I myself could recover. Before you arrived, my mana was almost depleted because I treated many people without using a medium. The state of my body could no longer return to what it was before. Feeling that this incident caused severe damage to my body, I had mentally prepared myself. But the moment Macaron touched me, I felt like water in a cup being filled to the brim in just a blink of an eye. It turns out this is the source of Macaron's strength. Receiving help is a good thing for me. But how can we recover Macaron's terrifying strength? Hearing this, Macaron couldn't help but raise a fist toward him. Terrifying strength? I am a lady, you know. After hearing that, Ganet still smiled gently. What is it? I actually think you are wonderful. At the same time, Macaron was extremely astonished. He blocked the punch that I put all my effort into. Isn't this punch very weak? This is the feeling of a normal lady. I don't know, maybe this is a good thing. If my extraordinary strength disappears, will the prejudices surrounding me improve even just a little bit? If I were a normal child, I wouldn't have hurt anyone, and I wouldn't have gone through such lonely days. I miss my mother. When will I ever stop feeling insecure and lonely? I see the scene before my eyes. Ganet's eyes widened. He looked at the girl as she bowed her head, crying streams of tears. Ganet was a bit worried. Macaron, are you crying? But the other party denied it. No. At this, Ganet became even more worried and touched her shoulder. It's not nothing, Macaron. Witnessing his act of concern, she quickly opened her eyes wide as Ganet also narrowed his eyes to look at her. After a moment, he moved his body slightly. I'm sorry for making you overexert yourself, if possible. Until we find a way to recover Macaron's strength, I will stay by your side. I will not leave you alone. Meanwhile, Macaron could only stare at Ganet with wide eyes. Then she smiled contentedly. Both faced each other with full of embarrassment. To break the atmosphere, Macaron leaned over slightly. I'm hungry. Let's eat something first, Meering. Immediately, the maid quickly agreed. Yes, my lady. A cart filled with many sweets was brought in. Macaron kept eating one thing after another. She seemed to have completely abandoned her image. Her stomach gradually grew larger as it was full. Time passed by. Macaron happily praised, "It tastes so delicious." Ganet broke a slight sweat in confusion. She really has a good appetite. Tea was also poured into the cup. Macaron slowly used both hands to lift it and take a light sip. Seeing that, Ganet looked across and called out, "Macaron, can you hold a teacup now?" These words left Macaron in great shock. At this point, Ganet pointed toward her. Macaron's strength has returned. It seems that extraordinary power recovers through desserts. Is it really that easy? After hearing Ganet's question, that's great, isn't it? Macaron's cheeks flushed red as she kept smiling. At the time my father was about to return, I saw Ganet off. He smiled and said that we would see each other again soon. I felt relieved when my strength returned, but I also felt a bit of regret. I think father would not be pleased with me being close to Ganet, so I kept everything a secret from him, Macaron. Looking at the sweet cake placed by the window. The weather is already starting to heat up. The spring debutante ball feels like it was just yesterday. Beside her, Meering placed her hands in front and said respectfully, I have confirmed it. There are no reports mentioning a visit from the royal family to the territory. Suddenly, Macaron's eyes lowered slightly. All right, it's surprisingly quiet around here. Whenever I let my guard down, something is bound to happen. At this point, Meering spoke up once again. In a slightly hesitant tone, the next news. The head of the Mont Blanc house said he would visit the mansion early this morning. Looking at how quickly he passed through the main gate, he has probably arrived at the mansion by now. At the same time, another maid stood at the door, poking her head in to announce, My lady, Grand Duke Mont Blanc has come to visit. The two people inside had completely opposite attitudes. He's here. That was incredibly fast. Macaron slowly walked out of the room. Don't let anyone outside know that the Grand Duke is visiting. Hearing this, Meering immediately bowed and replied, Yes, my lady. In another development, a man with long flowing white hair appeared in the great hall. Seeing him, Macaron's eyes widened and she spoke in a low voice. You have arrived, Grand Duke? Meanwhile, Saber also stared intently at the other. As I said, today I will defeat you, my lady. Scene changes. A slender hand gently took a piece of cake from the shelf. The day Ackley posed in front of the lens. The photographer constantly praised her. Well done, my lady. She continuously displayed her confidence. When facing the camera, shooting wonderfully. Afterward, Ekla had a set of photos that she was very pleased with. Seeing that, the old photographer praised her once more. The photo set just taken is well deserved to be chosen as the cover for next month. At the same time, Jujubee was standing, peeking inside. Her eyes looked momentarily sad. Today's photo shoot will probably not be finished until late tonight. Ekle is truly busy. In another development, at the bathroom with countless soap bottles on the table. Here, Ekle was soaking her entire body submerged in water. She stared intently at the ceiling above her. Suddenly, she unexpectedly called out, "Jujubee, are you there?" Immediately. The other person, seemingly separated only by a screen, replied, "I am always by your side." Hearing this, Ekle began to complain. "Taking photos all day has made my whole body ache. Exactly how many dresses did I have to change into?" But meanwhile, Jujubee, on the outside, still calmly turned the pages of her book. "Lately, you have been much busier than usual. I am very worried. Is there nothing bothering you?" However, Ekle quickly denied it. How could that be? In times of exhaustion, even if just a little, the gentle Jujubee shared, "You can also confide in me." Hearing that, Ekle came out from inside wearing a bathrobe. She spoke sharply as a reminder, "Don't interfere. You are overstepping your bounds." But Jujubee seemed to realize it as well, her head bowing slightly. At the same time, Ekle's eyebrows were still furrowed tightly. She used her hand to lift the other's chin. "Don't tell me you're still researching something. Long-term exposure to those chemicals will ruin your skin. Just look at your lifeless face. Use up all those sponsored honey body wash bottles. I'm so stressed. I should probably host a tea party soon. A truly grand party." Immediately, Jujubee showed her goodwill. "I will also help you prepare." Hearing this, Ekle only glanced back. Then she said nothing and kept walking toward the door in the back. Jujubee couldn't help but smile contentedly. She was alone in the room with an empty heart. A moment later, Jujubee spoke in a low voice. "I suppose I must take part in this tea party. The decorations chosen by the servants won't please. Eclair, the ceramic tableware must be items from the south. Lately, it has also been in fashion. The mother-of-pearl inlaid teapot brought back from the southern coast. I must quickly pre-order it and bring it back, so as not to be inferior to other tea parties. If the garden is decorated with Spartan berries to match this year's purple-pink color. Right, I must go to Spartan. Bring the seeds back and plant them now, so by autumn, the plants will have grown. Are you listening?" After hearing this, Saliza the black cat quickly meowed in response. It began to circle around where Jujubee was standing, seeing that. She understood immediately. "You really want to go out, don't you?" A long time ago, when witch hunts were happening everywhere, real witches disguised themselves as ordinary people to hide their identity and protect their own safety. The fact that someone becomes a witch is not determined by hereditary factors. It is very random and fateful. A person's deep voice echoed, "This place will be your home, Jujubee." Since she was young, Jujubee realized she was different from others, even if she was labeled with a bad reputation. That still didn't affect Jujubee too much. Why? Because unlike her father, the man who impersonated an alchemist, she was the real one. Before learning how to control her power, she learned to hide in the shadows and live as she does now. Until someone recognizes the value of Jujubee, she will continue to live like a shadow. Jujubee said to Saliza, "So, shall we prepare to set out immediately?" The black cat heard this and meowed a few times in excitement. A train of thought popped into her head, just like a friend, spending a lifetime by their master's side. Second, the gentle sunlight stretched across the Spartan territory, also known by the name Spartan. One might know, Spartan is a fertile land located near the royal family. At that time, due to a lack of administrative capacity, the first head of the Spartan house could only establish policies revolving around his own territory. However, fortunately, the first residents of the territory were very hardworking and gentle. Afterward, Spartan began to implement policies, taking the territory as the center. Agriculture and gardening. Their signature skills became the dominant industries, Jujubee thought to herself. That is what I investigated beforehand. But seeing it with my own eyes, they are much more prosperous than that. Jujubee was slightly pensive. A moment of wonder flashed through her. The location is not far from the royal family, but the roads are very outdated. Do they not know how to manage it? If only. It could become a center for many different fields. That would be wonderful. But are the Spartan berries not in season yet? Jujubee sat down quietly, her eyes looking down at the flower bed, with many types of flowers blooming colorfully, as if searching for something. I don't see it anywhere. She began to turn her head and look around. Let's try that flower shop over there. Suddenly, Jujubee quietly remembered Ekle. If she knew I went out without a maid, Ekle would definitely get angry again. I don't plan on staying long. Ekle's scolding voice echoed faintly. Do you not even realize that you are a lady? Withdrawing from her thoughts, Jujubee suddenly saw something, her eyes widening. It was Saliza. It happily stepped forward, its black fur with spots making it look more mystical. Seeing it, Jujubee smiled gently, her eyes looking at it affectionately. Immediately after, Jujubee lovingly picked up the cat, feeling its softness. Its warmth and her voice softly echoed. Besides me, no one knows of your existence, being with anyone else. makes me feel uncomfortable. I don't want to cause any useless misunderstandings. Since we are already here, let's pull ourselves together and go find the seeds. Until the very end, shall we? As if understanding, Saliza cried out in joy. Right after, Jujube's footsteps stepped lightly on the road. While walking, her eyes suddenly caught sight of something. At that same moment, in front of Jujube, she caught a glimpse of two men standing opposite each other, shaking hands and greeting each other happily. It seemed they had just completed a transaction or an agreement, an important one. Only a few seconds later, Jujube immediately turned to leave, but Jujube's gaze was still, full of worry mixed with suspicion as she glanced back. Suddenly, a man hurriedly ran toward the other. Then the two of them left together because of something. Seeing that action of the two of them, Jujube thought to herself, truly suspicious. They are people of the royal family yet pretending to dress like commoners. Would people of the royal family really dress so simply? Clearly very suspicious. Why are they present in the Spartan territory? My intuition tells me that if I get involved in this, I will be in trouble. It is truly curious. As if understanding. Immediately, Saliza ran forward. Caught by surprise, Jujube shouted, "Hey!" Saliza, as expected of a spirit beast. She acts exactly according to my will. Only a few seconds later, Jujube sighed repeatedly in exhaustion. A few drops of sweat appeared on her face here. Jujube breathed while observing the area around where she stood. Jujube, full of confusion, softly muttered, "Strange." She clearly ran in this direction. The space seemed to sink into a thick darkness. Suddenly, from behind, a hand decisively covered her mouth, making it almost impossible for her to resist. Only moments later, the elegant brimmed hat fell onto the cold ground, merging with the sound of her cry. Jujube helplessly thought to herself, what is this? These people. Finally, her entire body lay on the ground, under the terrifying gaze of the tall men. One of them spoke up. This woman. Looking at her attire, she is not an ordinary person. She knew our identities, so she followed us. Suddenly, Saliza appeared out of nowhere. Her face drew near, filled with anger. Her eyes looked at them with hatred. Immediately, she lunged toward the two men, and then a hand pushed her hard, making her fall to the ground. That man said, "The more I look, the more suspicious she seems." "Handle her first," Jujube's choked whisper. Echoed a name called out, "No." The Spartan family must know this truth. Macaron. Then her body sank into cold immobility, falling into the arms of danger. But at the same time, at a certain training area, under the clear blue sky and brilliant light, Macaron, wearing combat attire, slightly turned her head to look somewhere. An unease rose in her heart. What is this? A bad premonition just flashed through. Suddenly, a deep voice echoed as a reminder. Where are you looking? And then a blade was swung, creating a blinding and powerful flash of light. The two of them lunged forward to block each other's blows, both eyes fixed on the opponent. Macaron spoke softly. "Lord Saber." Immediately after, he backed away. Thoughts echoed softly in her head. His movements are more flexible than before. But there is still something inside him that hasn't been released. As if something is suppressed and cannot flow. Ending her thoughts, she spoke again. "Lord Saber, is it possible that you..." Before she could finish her sentence, suddenly a voice shouted loudly, making them both turn toward the sound. "My lady!" That call came from a maid. She was standing there, breathing heavily because she had run all the way here. After calming down, she immediately reported, "I heard that in Tilda. A large fire has just occurred." Hearing that, Macaron's eyes widened in astonishment, as if unable to believe her ears. What? Trong một khoảnh khắc, những ký ức về những người dân nghèo khổ, bệnh tật tại một nơi cũ kỹ, ánh mắt đáng thương của những đứa trẻ, một lời vang lên trong tâm trí cô. Không được, mình phải trực tiếp đến đó. Thấy hành động đột ngột đó của cô, Saber giật mình, khuôn mặt đầy hốt hoảng. Anh lập tức bắt lấy tay cô, kêu lên, "Đời đã cô đi đâu vậy chứ?" Hành động đột ngột này khiến cô hơi giật mình quay lại. Nghe vậy, cô liền đáp lại, "Tilda, đang xảy ra hỏa hoạn. Tôi không thể ngồi yên được." Sắc mặt Saber trở nên bực bội xen lẫn lo lắng. Một mình lao đến nơi xảy ra hỏa hoạn rồi cô định làm gì? Cô nghĩ có thể xử lý bằng sức mạnh của mình nha. Ngay lúc ấy, một người hầu nữ hốt hài chạy đến hối hả thông báo tiểu thư. Tôi đã chuẩn bị xe ngựa để tiểu thư có thể đi ngay lập tức. Nhưng không chần chú, Sa bọt tiến vào ngồi vào trong xe, ánh mắt ra hiệu cho cô. Macaron đứng ngoài lang một thoáng suy nghĩ. "Tiểu thư Macaron." Chỉ ngay sau đó, Macaron ngước mắt lên. Đôi mắt hồng ngọc của cô bỗng đỏ rực lên. Ngay khoảnh khắc ấy, tiếng kêu thất thanh vang lên, "Tiểu thư." Cả hai con ngựa kéo xe cũng bị giật mình, đôi mắt đầy hoảng sợ kinh hãi trước việc gì đó. Macaron với sức mạnh kinh khủng, cô đã dùng tay nhắc bống cổ xe ngựa lên cao, hét lớn, "Tốc độ của ngựa quá chậm, ta sẽ tự mình chạy đến đó." Và rồi không một chút chần chừ, cô dứt khoát bưng chiếc xe và bắt đầu chạy đi. Những bước chân mạnh mẽ vang vọng trên nền đất. Macaron lao đi với tốc độ đáng kinh ngạc, như một cơn lốc gió đầy kiên cường. Bên trong xe Sabot không kịp phản ứng, anh bị hất tung lên văng ra khỏi hoàng ghế, khuôn mặt vô cùng hoảng sợ. Bất ngờ, cây kiếm dài búng lên đầu anh gây ra một cục u tròn trĩnh. Chiếc xe tiếp tục bị lạc dữ dội, đến mức cảnh vật bên ngoài trao đảo như một bức tranh nhẹ. Cuối cùng, khi đến nơi chiếc xe ngựa được đặt xuống nền đất, Macaron đứng một góc lấy lại nhịp thở sau khi chạy. Người dân xung quanh bụ lại đầy tò mò. Ngay sau đó Macaron hớn hở bước tới mở cửa. Vừa nói ngài Sabot chúng ta đến nhanh hơn dự tính nhi. Bất ngờ cô thấy cửa không mở được liền hoang mang. What's wrong with this door? Only a few seconds later, she nonchalantly ripped the entire door off like snapping a twig. Macaron poked her head inside and happily called out, "Lord Saber!" But inside, Saber was sitting flat on the floor. His hair was a mess. His face was as pale as if his soul had been drained, his whole body trembling. Macaron panicked and quickly ran over to shake him. "Lord Saber! Wake up!" He faintly replied, "I'm fine." Suddenly, shouting and cries for help rang out, catching both of their attention. "Quick! Bring water! There's a fire!" Before them, bright red flames rose high. Như nhận ra vị trí đó, Macaron's face suddenly became serious. That location is where the patients suffering from the black disease are gathered. Why is it that a bad premonition is never wrong like this? In front of her, the citizens were trying to save what they could, gathering before the fierce fire. One of the strong men hurriedly carried heavy buckets of water, stepped forward. "Move aside! Move aside quickly!" A powerful stream of water was splashed into the sea of fire. If this keeps up, everyone in the alley will die. Macaron stood there, thinking to herself about a secret technique. Spartan has no way to stop the flames. With pure strength alone, I can't do it. She lightly clenched her hand encased in a leather glove. Suddenly, Macaron directed her gaze toward a forgotten fire hydrant, standing lonely on the street. Seeing it, a spark of hope ignited in her eyes. As if realizing what she needed to do, immediately Macaron called out to everyone, "Everyone, move to one side!" At that moment, Saber also ran over from a distance. Macaron began to shout loudly, "Everyone, get out of the way!" Macaron no longer hesitated. She leaned down, using her terrifying strength to rip the heavy fire hydrant right out of the paved ground. The ground cracked under her immense power. The giant water pillar was jerked into the air. Immediately after, pressurized water droplets sprayed out from the ground. Macaron leaned her body, using all her might to lift the water pillar high. Watching her action, Saber stood to the side in complete awe. A powerful and cold stream of water shot out, heading toward the burning, scorching flames. Đứng từ xa, Saber chứng kiến cảnh tượng đó, anh kinh ngạc thốt lên. Ánh mắt không thể tin nổi. Cái đó cô ấy bắt gốc nó chỉ với sức mạnh ư? Macaron vẫn tiếp tục hành động của mình. Cô khuỵu người xuống, sẵn sàng kích hoạt năng lực đặc biệt của mình. Đó là bí kíp Spartan. Một quả cầu năng lượng hình tổ ong màu vàng rực bắt đầu hình thành trong tay cô. Và Macaron kết hợp năng lượng vàng rực của mình với dòng nước đang bốc lên, tạo thành bí kíp của Spartan. Màn Armadillo tràn lời. Ngay lập tức những luồng bay vào bao trùm, nơi ngọn lửa đang điên cuồng cháy, tạo nên một cảnh tượng ngoạn mục. Ý cảnh những người dân chứng kiến kinh ngạc, không hiểu điều gì vừa xảy ra. Đó là gì vậy? Một cơ thể nhỏ bé lại có sức mạnh khủng khiếp đến vậy. Không phải là một quý cô bình thường. Lẽ nào vị đó là tiểu thư Spartan, người chưa từng tham gia hoạt động bên ngoài suốt 10 năm. Bất ngờ, những miếng gỗ dì ngọn lửa phá hủy rơi xuống nền đất, nhưng miếng gỗ không ngừng rơi vào phía người dân đang đứng, khiến mọi người bắt đầu la hét, khiến sự hoảng loạn lại dâng lên. Thấy vậy, một người phụ nữ lớn tuổi, với gương mặt đầy quyết tâm, vội vàng thúc giục mọi người còn làm gì nữa. Mau lấy nước từ trụ cứu hỏa đi. Ngọn lửa vẫn không ngừng cháy, cuồn lên từng đợt như mật kiểm soát. Một góc nào đó, một bàn tay mạnh mẽ đột ngột nắm lấy cổ tay cô. Saber liền hét lên. Khoan đã, tiểu thư một mình xông vào đây để làm gì đó đúng không? Hiện giờ cô nhạy cảm khác hẳn thường ngày. Macaron không đáp lại. Ánh mắt chứa đựng vô vàn suy nghĩ chỉ lặng lẽ nhìn vào anh. Rồi Saber tiếp tục cô đang che giấu chuyện gì đó. Nói đi đã xảy ra chuyện gì ở con hẻm phía sau này. Nghe vậy, đôi mắt đỏ rực của Macaron nhìn lấy anh, thoáng toát lên vẻ lo lắng. Ngay sau đó, một dòng ký ức về Ganet hiện lên trong tâm trí cô. Những câu hỏi vô hình đấy rồi dẫm hiện lên ngài Saber. Is he a trustworthy person? Will he accept it? The black disease is spreading rapidly in the back alley. And recognize Ganet, who comes from the Terran family, for who he truly is. She ended her train of thought and sighed softly. Immediately after, Macaron's eyes welled up with tears. Her voice trembled as she spoke. Lord Saber, will you help me? That fragile question made Saber pause. Tears kept flowing down her beautiful face. Saber remained silent. Immediately after, Saber began to walk. The sound of footsteps echoed on the scorching ground. He brushed past her. His voice was soft but decisive. Stop crying. A true leader must not let emotions dominate them. Having said that, Saber sighed. Only a few seconds later, he swung his sword with absolute decisiveness, and then the blade slashed through the obstructing wood in front of them, causing it to shatter into tiny pieces. Witnessing that moment, Macaron stared at him in a daze. Seeing this, he turned slightly and said in a deep voice, "Are you planning to keep standing there?" Hearing that, Macaron was momentarily startled. She hurriedly wiped away the remaining tears and replied flusteredly, "No." After regaining her composure, Macaron led the way. "Let's go this way." Their footsteps were hurried and purposeful, on the burning hot ground. In her mind, reflections softly echoed. Because I believed in my own strength, I decided to be ready to help Ganet, but with my own strength alone. In the end, I couldn't achieve anything. After saving the patients, I will tell Father about the situation and seriously implement disease prevention in Tilda. So everyone, please stay alive. Ending her train of thought, Macaron entered with him. Beneath their feet, everything was decaying in the flickering flames. Saber looked around with high vigilance. His cold purple eyes swept through every hidden corner. Strange, there's nothing here. There are people here, right? Suddenly Macaron stopped. Her eyes grew large and round, flashing with surprise upon seeing something ahead, in the midst of the wildly burning fire. Saliza was injured near the eye, her weak eyes looking toward her. She cried out in surprise, "Lord Saber's cat?" and stepped closer. Her voice still echoed with astonishment at the small animal in the middle of this dangerous place. "Why is it sitting here all alone?" Macaron looked at it, her face clearly showing confusion and worry. "Who are you?" Saliza let out a soft cry, then immediately turned and ran away. Seeing this, she cried out in panic and gave chase. "It's dangerous, wait!" Just moments later, it stopped right in front of a door. It turned its head, its eyes staring intently at the two of them. Suddenly, Saliza moved toward the door and pawed at it repeatedly. Seeing that action, Macaron asked in wonder, "Is there something inside?" "Move out of the way." After speaking, she hurriedly rushed forward. Her punch caused a hole to burst through the door, simultaneously causing the cat to be flung back. At that exact moment, a hand caught its small body. A second of silence. Saber looked at it with irritation. Immediately afterward, he gave it a smack, causing it to let out an angry cry. And then a red-hot claw mark streaked past. At the same time, Macaron's voice echoed, "Let's go inside." When seeing Saber's anger, she was bewildered and didn't understand why. Afterward, the two of them stepped inside together. The room was filled with a terrifying silence. Her footsteps echoed softly on the floor, as if sensing a strange change in the air. She immediately raised her hand to cover her nose from the cold draft. Instantly realizing something was ahead, Saber's voice rang out in warning. "Macaron, look in front of you." Before their eyes was a pair of hands tied tightly with white rope, a very familiar back. In a corner, Jujube was now being tied up. As she realized, Macaron gasped in panic, "You..." "Jujube." Seeing Macaron's panic, Saber asked, "Is it someone you know?" "Yes, but it's so strange." The words had just left her mouth when a rope was snapped in two. Macaron caught her. Full of anxiety, "I didn't think Jujube would come to Tilda." "Why on earth?" Suddenly, a voice shouted her name, startling her out of her train of thought. "Macaron, Jujube has woken up right before your eyes." Her eyes are now dark and open slightly. The depths of her eyes are soulless, reflecting the cold light of ice and snow. It looks very terrifying. Macaron's face is now full of panic. Her pink eyes are wide with shock mixed with worry. "Jujube?" Looking at Jujube's face, she trembled, thinking to herself, "What is this?" But as if sensing something unusual emanating from her, Macaron took a step back. Jujube is not like her usual self. Suddenly, Saber unexpectedly stepped forward and called her name loudly. "Macaron!" The call startled her, and she turned back to look. At the moment Macaron turned her back, Jujube sat up slowly. Her face was darkened, looking extremely terrifying. In the frighteningly silent atmosphere, a scratching sound rang out, tearing through the air. Then Jujube flew into the air. Her whole body seemed soulless. She reached out her hand to scratch at Macaron. And then, on Macaron's small face, a small scratch was made. "Jujube, what is wrong?" A stream of green energy was directed toward Macaron, forcing her to try and dodge it. Immediately after, Macaron reacted at once. She used her hand to tightly grab Jujube's wrist. To stop her, Macaron called out in a low voice, "Don't you recognize me? It's Macaron. I'm your friend." And in that moment, a sad memory appeared in her eyes. But amidst the chaos, Macaron saw a flash of an image. A question echoed softly. "Were we once friends?" But just after that, Jujube twisted away from her hand, sensing her hand moving forward. Macaron closed her eyes slightly, her heart full of grief. "It's over." At that exact moment, Saber rushed in like a bolt of lightning. His strong arms held Macaron, dodging that attack. because he protected her. A bright red line appeared on his arm, soaking through the fabric. Macaron looked at him with great anxiety. Saber's gaze hardened as he looked at her. His eyebrows furrowed tightly. What are you thinking in the middle of a fight? Where has your combat spirit gone? Finishing his words, he turned away. Seeing this, Macaron cried out, Lord Saber! He did not hesitate and stepped forward. His voice echoed. Isn't she the adopted daughter of the Castart family? As a lady, why would she set foot in such a wretched place? Whose orders is she following, or what series of events was she caught up in? It's useless to ask. The words just fell when around Sabert. A blue light appeared like a whirlwind, in a majestic stance, ready for battle. But as Sabert's sword strikes flew out, Jujube also continuously managed to dodge them. But as if realizing something, Sabert's eyes narrowed. As I thought. She is not a martial artist, so I can't sense any aura from her. She's full of openings. He ended his train of thought, as if catching a weakness when Jujube jumped up. Saber immediately ducked down to strike. Right after, Jujube was hit and tumbled to the ground. Seeing that, he thought to himself, her state is unpredictable. It's like fighting unconsciously. Therefore, she is even more dangerous. She must be eliminated. Suddenly, from behind, a pair of hands reached for his sword hilt. Macaron's face was full of worry. Her eyes glistening, she spoke in a soft voice. Lord Saber, you mustn't. Drawing a sword against someone who is not. A knight is an act against the code of chivalry. Jujube is not her normal self right now. Even her presence in this place is very strange. You help me, and I must help her. Hearing that, Saber was pensive for a moment, then he replied, If you weren't a warrior, both of us would have died the moment we stepped into this house. Do you even understand the severity of the situation? She replied in a low voice. I understand, so please give me a chance to make it right, because Jujube is my friend. With those words, Macaron rushed forward. At the same time, Jujube launched an attack with sparkling, icy ice shards. The power of those shards was madly rushing toward her. Immediately, Macaron blocked them. But Jujube did not stop and continued to launch power attacks. At this moment, she was hit and fell backward. Witnessing this scene, Sabert stood to one side, full of worry. Mixed with panic, he cried out, Macaron! Macaron's face darkened, and she let out a soft sigh. Just moments later, she stood straight up. Her face turned serious. In her hands, she held back the sharp glass ice shards. Jujube's face was soulless. Immediately after, Macaron stepped forward and shouted, Jujube! The glass shards whizzed through the air toward Jujube, and then they struck Jujube directly, making her fall backward. But words suddenly echoed in her head. I will help you. Ending her thoughts, she launched another power attack. Sharp ice fragments pinned Jujube's arms. Now Jujube's entire body was fixed against the wall by the sharp, glowing ice fragments. Looking at her, Macaron thought to herself, but how? Suddenly, small paws with black spots stepped in. It was Saliza, stepping majestically between her and Jujube. Seeing this, Saber and Macaron were bewildered and understood nothing. Immediately after, it let out a happy cry. Then it slowly approached her legs and began to rub its face against them. Instantly, Saber panicked, grabbed her, and pulled her back. Suddenly, the atmosphere became silent. Images of Jujube from earlier gradually appeared. These are Jujube's memories. At that time, the voices of those men rang out. Captain, what should we do with this girl? It seems she has realized our existence. We can't leave her like this. Burn her to death along with this slum. Jujube lay face down on the cold ground. Her eyes dreamy, her weak voice spoke in her mind. I have to tell Macaron. In a room almost entirely filled with fire. Jujube was tied to a chair in the middle of the room. Saliza cried out in worry. Seeing that, Jujube gently comforted her. I'm okay. Saliza, if I use ice magic, I can still endure it. Looking at the drastic actions from the royal family. In this back alley, there is a secret they want to hide from us. Saliza, take my order until someone comes to help. Protect the people in this alley. Immediately. Saliza quickly cried out happily in response. Scene changes. Macaron and Saber are standing in the dark room, looking at the swaying tail. Its paws touch the snowflake on the floor. Seeing that, Macaron was a bit confused. That is no ordinary snowflake. At the same time, Saliza let out another cry. One paw touched the outer edge of the snowflake. The foot pressure was extremely powerful. The three of them looked eye to eye in silence. Macaron's face suddenly showed a look of bewilderment. She used both hands to shield the front of her body, avoiding the terrifying light hitting her eyes. Macaron's eyes widened in stunned silence. She began to look around her. Macaron began to feel utterly confused. This is suddenly being brought to an unfamiliar space. Her footsteps walked aimlessly. Then she was extremely terrified, running while calling out loudly, Lord Sabert! Jujube! Jujube! At this point, Macaron suddenly tripped and almost fell flat. Fortunately, a hand caught her just in time. Macaron happily looked back and called out, "Lord Saber!" However, the other person was not him. He looked at her mockingly. "Oh my, sorry about that. I accidentally brought you in here. It's been a long time since I brought a human into the darkness. It's been nearly 200 years, hasn't it?" Immediately, Macaron quickly jerked her hand back, angrily asking, "Who are you?" Meanwhile, the opponent remained calm. "You don't recognize me? It is I, Saliza." Hearing this, Macaron was a bit terrified. Jujubee's spirit beast? A spirit beast? That cat? Hearing that, Saliza became extremely angry and shouted, "Cat? Anyone looking can see that I am an incredibly fierce leopard." But the other party only glanced with a mocking look. "What leopard?" Making Saliza even more furious. "You don't believe it at all, do you? Whatever. I will take you back to where you should be." Then he gave a light snap of his fingers. Immediately, another space appeared instantly. Macaron held Saliza in her arms, looking off into the distance. "This is the outside. Spartan, is this place safe?" Suddenly, Saber's voice echoed from behind. "Macaron!" Upon seeing that person, she did not hesitate to speak. "Lord Saber?" And then Saber slowly continued his words. "Everyone is still safe. It seems people were evacuated using magic. Teleportation before the fire spread. According to the memories seen through Saliza, this girl has saved many people." After hearing that, Macaron slowly walked toward Jujubee. She couldn't hold back her tears, wiping her face with her hand. "It's truly a relief that everyone is still safe. Thank you, Saliza." After that, Macaron once again fell into silence in the back. Saber showed a look of worry while looking at the other, saying nothing. A moment later, he crossed his arms solemnly. In Jujubee's memories, some strangers appeared, suspected to be people from the royal city. If the Tilda incident is truly related to the royal city, then this matter is complicated. Macaron's face still showed a sorrowful expression. A train of thought immediately popped into her head. She must immediately inform Ganet of this matter. Scene changes at the mansion covered by the sunset sky. Ganet wore glasses, sitting at his research desk. He looked at the medical tools on the table. Healing through a medium also has its limits. If we keep relying on Macaron's extraordinary strength, she will be in danger. If patients cannot create their own immunity, I must research a cure. In another development, Ekel, wearing a fashionable dress, looked back. Seeing the person who just arrived, she quickly called out, "Your Highness! You've arrived. I was waiting for you." Hearing this, Tat narrowed his eyes slightly. "You came today too, Ikle?" A table of tea and cakes was set out in front of them. Ikle kept telling stories. "So there is a big fish living in the lake in front of the house. But that fish swallowed the pearl earrings that I dropped. Those were the only earrings in the world made by a master craftsman. It truly is a pity." Suddenly, Tat unexpectedly stood up and interrupted. "It is time for me to return to state affairs. I had a lot of fun today." Ikle was a bit confused, smiling faintly. "Is it that time already?" Afterwards, she followed behind Tat. Her gaze was caught by the flowers on the side of the road. Seeing this, Ekel quickly said, "Your Highness, every time I look at them, they are so incredibly beautiful. These flowers only grow in the royal palace, don't they? Can I keep one? I want to have it." After hearing that, Tat was silent for a moment. He coldly refused. "Let's see, it's a flower species that is still being researched, so it cannot be given to anyone." It was like a knife cutting through Ekel's heart. "Anyone?" Meanwhile, Tat remained extremely calm. "Let's go, I will see Ikle off." But behind him, Ikle's anger was clearly showing on her face. Did he say anyone? Ikle constantly drifted in her own stream of thoughts. As soon as we met, I could sense he was like me. Back and shoulders always straight and not a single hair out of place. A gaze that seems to pierce through the inner thoughts of others. He even surpasses me in every aspect. Even if he feels terrible, he does not let his emotions show, but uses layers of kindness to cover it up. He is exactly like a cake, a tart made from perfect dough. The cake was brought to her mouth. Seeing this, the photographer immediately praised her. "Very good, my lady. This time, place the combo dish next to your breath and then enjoy it." Immediately, Ekel quickly smiled and agreed. "Yes." At this time, the maid standing nearby softly said, "My lady, you didn't eat anything last night, and now you're working while eating a special dish like this. You must be very happy." The knife spread a thin layer of jam on the surface of the cake. Then Ikle continued to eat it slowly. At this moment, the photographer praised while taking photos. "Good, my lady. Now it's truly a work of art." Flashbulbs constantly popped in front of Ikle's eyes. She looked at the piece of cake, a cold sweat breaking out. Ikle once again sank into a flow of reflection. Was I just distracted? My physical strength is insufficient, but I must not eat. I still have to lose weight to prepare for the next cover model and the tea party. At the same time, the old photographer was a bit dissatisfied, shaking his index finger. "No, No, my lady, it still lacks sincerity. Please taste it directly. Immediately, Ekla's whole body froze up. There's no other way. Then just a little bit. Just a little bit. Meanwhile, the maid standing beside her smiled and asked, My lady, are you pretending to eat again? How can we finish the job if you act like that? But Ekla couldn't contain her anger. What? You piece of trash? Time passed, and the photo shoot seemed to be completed. The maid spoke while applying a mask to Ekla's face. You worked hard today too, my lady. Even with your makeup off, your skin is still this beautiful. Hearing this, Ekla grimaced with annoyance. She crossed her arms petulantly. Everything is like this because Jujube isn't here. Even if there is a tea party with His Highness Tat, I cannot miss the photo shoot. Later, Ekla walked out of the room wearing the face mask, seeing a figure standing silently in a corner. She screamed in fear and pointed her finger toward it. Ekla, still angry, questioned, What is this? You startled me. Jujube, where have you been that you're just getting back now? Without saying a word, and coming home late like that. But the other only gave a gentle smile. I am sorry. I went to Tilda to order flowers and a teapot for the tea party, but I got lost in a small alley, so I returned late. Ekla was still not over her anger. Tilda is the Spartan territory, isn't it? But she received no response. Jujube gently walked closer to Ekla. This action made her speechless, not knowing what to say, while Jujube calmly spoke. I am going to rest now. See you tomorrow, Ekla. Hearing that, Ekla instinctively turned her face back. She couldn't help screaming when she saw 2 orange slices lying on the ground. My fruit mask has all fallen onto the floor. Scene changes, the large door was closed. Jujube tiredly slumped down, leaning her back against the door. She closed her eyes to recover. Seeing this, Saliza was extremely worried. Stepped forward and touched Jujube's toe. She lowered her gaze to look at it and replied, I am fine. Saliza, the clock hands have begun to turn backward. 3 hours ago at Tilda, Jujube lay motionless on a thin mat. Suddenly someone raised a hand. She was a bit curious. You are Lady Macaron, the next head of the Spartan family, right? Your 2 actions were not normal at all. Noble gestures and attire and that extraordinary strength, according to our knowledge. There is only one such person. At the same time, the man who seemed to be the leader could not help but kneel down. He placed his hand on his chest earnestly. Please convey our suffering to the Lord. The others looked at each other for a moment. Then they also began to kneel down. Please, save us. This action made Macaron extremely confused. Everyone, please don't do this. Everyone stand up. Her eyes had become soulless at some point. Suddenly, a familiar hand held her back. Saber stood behind to reassure her. Snap out of it, Macaron. To them, you are the leader. If the leader does not hold their ground, then this place has no future. That black disease, if not handled quickly, it could become an even greater disaster. Hearing this, Jujube suddenly spoke. I can help you. I'm sorry. Macaron, you looked at that girl. Your eyes could not help but be moved, Jujube. At the same time, Saber also placed his hand on his chest, solemnly declaring, the North will also help you. Macaron, eyes welling with tears. Everyone... 3. Time control magic does not exist. In this world, time manipulation magic has the highest difficulty among all types of magic, and standing in the position of 3rd is the magic to change spatial attributes. It allows the user to control the position of objects and the weather. Something even harder than that is spatial teleportation magic. In the past, the Magic Association took nearly 1,000 years to determine the physical limits of a person who could teleport through space. 4. Only verified mages can teleport without leaving behind appendages like hair, teeth, or fingernails. To overcome this instability, spatial magic was developed to its ultimate level, being able to create a separate space and move it. A magic that allows the teleportation of an entire space, encompassing both people and objects, without worrying about leaving behind appendages. And we are in the midst of that ultimate magic, something that ordinary people would never see in their lifetime. Saliza, carrying Jujube in his arms, walked ahead and spoke. This place is the Abyss, a space maintained by Jujube's life force. Realizing the alley was burning, Jujube allowed her witch power to take control of her consciousness and brought everyone to seek refuge in the Abyss, then evacuated everyone out of Tilda. Hearing this, Macaron was a bit astonished, but meanwhile, Saliza continued to speak. Just in time for a rain shower to appear in Tilda. When the fire dies down, the Spartan soldiers will rush in. The 2 men hurriedly ran away. Saliza's tone slowly continued. Therefore, we will return the patients to their previous locations. However, one man felt uncomfortable. This knows Saliza spoke out sternly and loudly. The whole world will know about the existence of the black disease. Immediately, someone seemed unable to believe it. It's impossible for it to be a plague. In the small alley, 3 people were supporting each other as they walked. At this point, Saliza suddenly let out a cry. Macaron hurriedly gestured for silence. Yes, at the same time. Saber tilted his head slightly and asked, "Are you okay?" Jujube sighed tiredly. Yes. He looked at her while thinking. She looks very exhausted. It makes sense, given the amount of magic power she used. If it were an ordinary person, their body would have been torn apart, resulting in death. This strength is comparable to a royal mage. For someone so strong, why has she stayed hidden all this time? Suddenly, Saliza once again looked at Macaron and cried out as if wanting to say something. She quickly leaned her ear close to translate the animal's voice. What? If Jujube isn't sent home immediately, Ikle will be furious? On the other side, Jujube slowly suggested, the Spartan berries must be present at Ikle's tea party. I want to use Spartan berry bushes for decoration. It's very rare to get to go out, and yet I encountered such bad luck like this. At this point, Macaron was a bit confused. Jujube, why did you help me? You almost lost your life back there. Jujube smiled gently. Macaron said it herself. We are friends. What's so strange about helping a friend? And isn't Macaron also Ekli's friend? Hearing this, Macaron froze for a moment. About that, I am more like a fan than a friend. Suddenly, Jujube took Macaron's hand. You truly care for the person who is important to me. So I also care for you. Upon hearing this, Macaron's cheeks couldn't stop blushing bright red. They ignored the two men, who were looking at them with daggers in their eyes. Women, honestly. Then she lowered her voice slightly. It's not currently the season for Spartan berries, but I will take responsibility for finding them for you. Just trust me and leave it to me. Jujube seemed unable to believe her ears. Really? Immediately, Macaron smiled happily. Truly, really. Seeing that, Saliza couldn't stand it and squirmed in Macaron's arms. The two girls didn't know what to do and could only feel helpless. A moment later, Jujube slowly turned to leave. It is late, so I am going back now. I will come to help Macaron again. The other person disappeared before Macaron's eyes. At this point, she had no strength left to support herself and knelt on the ground. Seeing this, Saber rushed over. Are you okay? He helped Macaron up to support her as they walked. While she only gave a faint smile, her eyes pensive. Macaron asked in a low voice, What should we do now? The sky gradually turned toward evening with sunset-colored light. The head of the Spartan family narrowed his eyebrows and said coldly, What is the meaning of all this? What is the reason you ran to the fire area? The two faced each other with extreme tension. Then, Macaron broke into a cold sweat and kept stuttering. Well, I was worried people might be injured in the fire. The head of the Spartan family smiled with amusement. He immediately questioned her. My daughter, who usually only likes gardening, and enjoying tea. Who would rather die than leave the house? Now personally shows up because she's afraid people would be injured in the fire. Is that what you mean? Right in that deep alley, where no one dares to visit because the plague is spreading. Immediately, Macaron couldn't help but try to explain. I guess so, father. I just happened to walk in there. I don't know anything. Hearing this, the head of the Spartan family placed his hand on her head. He shouted angrily, Don't make excuses, explain yourself now. Seeing the head of the Spartan family using only one hand to lift Macaron's entire body off the ground, Saber flinched. A chill ran down his spine as he unconsciously took half a step back. Then he frowned in confusion and thought to himself, even if the head of the family has a forceful way of teaching, the way he treats the young lady like that, is it right or not? The thought had just finished when the head of the Spartan family suddenly snapped his head around. His gaze, sharp as a sword blade, pierced straight toward him. Then he gruffly shouted, asking, You wolf over there, speak up. What is going on? Saber instinctively froze. Feeling his throat go a bit dry, he hesitantly replied, About that. Then his eyes unconsciously flickered toward Macaron. Unexpectedly, he caught her eyes pleading for help right at that moment, seemingly wishing to find a small bit of hope, fragile as it may be, from him. Saber swallowed hard, then tried to gather all his remaining courage to speak. The North stands on the side of Lady Macaron. Other than this, I have nothing to say. After he heard these words, his eyebrows immediately clashed together and he suddenly exclaimed, Oh, Macaron. Then, without a shred of mercy, he indifferently let go of his hand, letting her fall to the floor. Then he scolded her loudly. I believed in the potential and the honesty within you, and intended to entrust you with the position of Spartan heir. Yet you delayed the coming-of-age ceremony, ran off to the debutante ball, only to return in disgrace. Even the fact that you neglected your training for the rest of the season. Because of that, I still thought you were just losing your way. I intended to wait for you to recover and stand up, but if you continue to commit acts that make me lose all faith like this, the position of heir, please, father, hand it over to my older brother. As you wish, I will grant the position of heir to your brother. Just then, hurriedly opening the door, entering along with 3 other maidservants. Merlin spoke up in a panic to stop him. "You cannot do that." The head maid then rushed to kneel on the floor and took all the blame upon herself. "The young lady did nothing. It is all our fault. Even if you fire us, we will accept the punishment." Hearing that, Macaron was deeply moved, her eyes welling with tears, thinking to herself, "Everyone cared for me so much that they went this far." Then she suddenly spoke up to explain, "It is the black disease. The black disease that once wiped out the old continent is gradually appearing in the new continent. There is a young man who is putting an effort all alone to stop that terrible disease from spreading throughout the Castella Empire, the disease that rots everything it touches. He is the next head of the Count's family, Ganet Terran, the head of the Spartan family." Hearing this, felt a flash of disappointment, and spoke his speculation. "If it is Terran..." Macaron immediately spoke to confirm, "That's right. I am the Terran in the rumors, the family that spreads the plague. But the Ganet I met was nothing like that at all. He is truly a physician, who rushes straight into the outbreak to examine and treat patients. As someone who also possesses strength, I want to help him, a man who has more courage than anyone. Mother, please let me use the Spartan power to stop this infectious disease." Merlin, upon hearing these words, could not help but stare in wide-eyed astonishment, thinking to herself, the young lady who always avoided facing reality, has she ever stepped forward for someone to this extent? Closing his eyes and furrowing his brows tightly, the head of the Spartan family murmured, "Terran again, huh?" Hearing him say that, Macaron slowly stood up, feeling a bit confused. He suddenly turned his face in another direction and coldly spoke his command. "Everyone, go back. I do not want to speak any further." She looked at him for a moment, then replied, "Yes." Soon it was already dark. Right now, in Macaron's room, lying on the bed, reminiscing about what the head of the Spartan family had said to her earlier. "Everyone, go back. I do not want to speak any further." She meditated and thought to herself, "Terran again. Does father know something about Terran? Otherwise, there would be no need to repeat it. I don't know. It feels so overwhelming. I also have to let Ganet know about this news. If he hears about what happened in Tilda, he'll surely be very surprised." All of a sudden, she heard a sound like someone stepping on a dry branch, making Macaron a bit startled. She hurriedly directed her gaze out the window. Then she quickly asked, "Who's there?" and smiled slightly in guess, thinking to herself, "Could it be..." Then she called out, "Ganet?" But contrary to her expectations, the thing appearing before her eyes right now was not Ganet, but a small red dragon with wings. But she didn't know where. A small dragon had suddenly appeared right on her room's balcony, making her unable to hide her astonishment as her mouth hung open. She stood frozen for a moment. Then, without any hesitation, she curiously asked, "Who are you?" It let out a pampered cry, "Me." After gazing at it for a while, she suddenly felt a bit suspicious and wondered, "Why do you look so familiar?" To be able to carefully determine the identity of this small dragon, Macaron immediately picked it up and narrowed her eyes, carefully observing it for a moment. Then she smiled and exclaimed, "Ah, you are a wild baby dragon. Is there a note attached?" While opening the paper to take a look, she happily thought to herself, "This is a letter from Ganet." She was still thinking to herself. When the sentence ended, Ganet's pet suddenly opened its mouth and chomped down on her hair, making her a bit irritated as she gave a forced smile and asked, "Are you feeling hungry?" A short while later, while sitting and watching it drink milk, Macaron smiled and exclaimed, "You must be really hungry, huh?" Then she continued to open the paper from before to read, "I have bought a house. It is near Spartan." Then she couldn't help but exclaim in surprise, "Huh? I will live here and research the black disease. Come visit." After finishing reading the contents of the paper, she couldn't help but find it hard to believe and thought to herself, "Ganet bought a house? Why so suddenly?" Macaron's thought had just finished, when it was also the time that the pet of Ganet jumped up and bit her hand. Seeing this scene made her unable to hide her irritation, mixed with a bit of helplessness as she seriously reminded it, "Humans are not things to eat. You need to reorder your hierarchy." On the outskirts of the capital Castella, in the underground water pipes, there was an old man carrying a rake on his shoulder, while using a lantern to clearly illuminate the path ahead. The old man's name was Brioche. His life was very difficult. A commoner with no children, and no significant achievements to speak of. But suddenly, one day, he received a job, with generous wages. Having a job that can help stabilize my old age is truly a stroke of great luck. Brioche, in his capacity as the manager of the drainage system, he was conscious of his responsibilities and worked hard to clear the waste. But no matter how hard he tried, the foul stench from the drainage system did not diminish at all. And then, with a sudden squelch, the old man suddenly realized the reason. why the wages in this place were so high. Brioche disappeared as if no one knew a thing, because of the chaotic incident that occurred in Tilda. The world has come to know of the existence of the black disease. The black-haired young man suddenly asked with a bit of suspicion. You mean that right now? The infected patients are gathered and living here. Is that right? The blue-haired girl could not help but feel dejected, as she let out a moan of complaint. The world is coming to an end. How can one live with such insecurity? Is it time to abandon our beloved Tilda? In the imperial territories, including Tilda, fear regarding the plague began to rise. But the royal family has not yet issued clear instructions regarding the royal family's intent to burn down the slums in Tilda. Since there is no physical evidence, we cannot question them. The crown prince is a good person. It is impossible for him to issue such an instruction. I must stay truly alert. This is a matter concerning my own territory. If not for Jujubee's help, I don't know what would have happened by now. Thinking back, I made a promise to Jujubee. I want to use pinkish purple berry bushes to decorate for Ikla's upcoming tea party. I will find and buy Spartan berries. I said it with such confidence. But it is still a long way from the season of Spartan berries. Let's take a look around the territory once. After finishing her thought, Macaron called out for Merlin. She hurriedly bowed and replied, Yes, my lady. She turned her head slightly and then frowned, requesting in a serious tone. Send someone to the farms in Tilda and search for Spartan berries. Time passed quickly. Soon, the sky had already turned toward evening. Macaron frowned in astonishment and asked back, What? No matter how carefully we search the Spartan farms, there are no berry bushes? Merlin bowed and explained in a low voice, About that. I heard it's an unprecedented crop failure. People say that this year, among the berry plants, they cannot bear fruit because an unknown disease is spreading. Hearing this, Macaron instinctively stared wide-eyed and froze, thinking to herself, An unknown disease is spreading. Could it be the black disease doesn't only infect humans? In just a brief moment, I immediately imagined a terrifying scenario. The whole world sinking into a dark black color. Then Merlin suddenly asked curiously, Do you need the berry bushes urgently, my lady? She hummed a bit and replied, Yeah. I was asked. There are about 2 months left. While resting her hand on her chin, Merlin pondered and replied, In that case, the farmers said, They have a new cultivation method on clean land that isn't infected. How about we plant the seeds in your greenhouse? My lady? Macaron joyfully raised her hands and praised Merlin. You're a genius. That idea isn't bad at all, she replied with a squinting smile. I will bring the seeds to you, my lady. A moment later, looking at the pitch-black bag of seeds that was constantly emitting a strange scent, both of them couldn't help but be shocked and stood frozen for a long while. After that, Macaron immediately covered her nose with her hand and let out a soft sound. Ugh, and thought to herself, this smell is the black disease. Has that terrifying scenario become a reality? Pondering for a moment, she suddenly asked Merlin, Is this farm the only place left with seeds? Are there none at other farms? She replied sadly. Yes, my lady. This was the last farm. Hearing that, Macaron closed her eyes and sighed, thinking to herself, This problem is not simple at all. If it stays like this, the Spartan berry will go extinct. What should I do? What should I do? Right at this moment, a piece of memory suddenly resurfaced in her mind. Brother, aren't you training today either? Making her suddenly remember something. Then she muttered, I've got it. The place where berry seeds still remain. Merlin widened her eyes and asked back, Yes? She didn't answer, instead pensively reminiscing about the past. Walking closer to the spot where the pink-haired young man was lying, Macaron spoke up and suggested, Train with me. Did you hear me? Seeing that her brother didn't care at all about her words made her so frustrated that tears welled up in her eyes. Then she shouted loudly, Dakoi! He suddenly used a berry to shoot it straight at her face, causing her to cry out in pain, Ah! Then, while crushing another fruit in his hand, he gruffly scolded her, Too noisy. Because of you, the flavor of the berry is ruined. Dakoi Spartan, the eldest son of the Spartan family, a pathetic person, whom I do not want to acknowledge as my brother, the person who should have taken my place to inherit the position of family head. As soon as Macaron finished reminiscing, Merlin suddenly turned and asked with worry, My lady, will you be okay without me accompanying you? She immediately spoke to reassure her. It's fine. I will go on my own from here. I have something important to say to him. Then, while walking, she thought to herself, behind the Spartan mansion, a place where no one visits. This is a secluded residence. A key that helps solve the problem, which seemed impossible to untangle, is lying silently there. It must be so. 3 in the middle of a silent space. Macaron was currently standing right at the entrance. The yellow light cast upon her face, making her red eyes look even more sharp and cold. A sudden cold wind brushed past the hallway, sweeping along a layer of hazy dust, causing a rustling sound to echo with unease. While observing the surroundings, Macaron thought to herself, just as I thought. Even as time passes, this place hasn't changed at all. Holding the lantern and stepping forward, someone spoke up and asked, "Who is it? Why come at such a late hour? Lady Macaron?" She smiled slightly and replied, "I'm glad you haven't forgotten your master." As soon as he saw her, he couldn't contain his emotions and burst into tears, saying, "My lady, you surprised me greatly." "My lady, is there a reason you suddenly came to this secluded mansion?" Macaron replied in a soft voice. "I came to find my brother. I need his help." Hearing this, he instinctively froze for a moment. Yes. Then he asked out of curiosity, "Master Dakwe?" "So suddenly?" She quickly asked back. "He is in his room, right? Please lead me to him." Hearing her request, he replied, "Yes, my lady." While following him, she instinctively fell into deep thought. Rusk is a loyal butler who has served 3 generations of the Spartan family. Rusk is the person who gives me the feeling that, as long as there is an adult by their side, who places full trust in them, a child who has lost everything can still be saved. Seeing Macaron sitting with her head down on the floor, Rusk stepped forward and reminded her with concern, "Oh, my lady, you should not be sitting in a cold place like this, because you are a very noble person." Hearing what Rusk said, she looked at him with tears welling in her eyes. Seeing that, he opened his arms wide and suggested with a squinting smile, "Come here, my lady." She did not answer, but hurriedly dropped the wooden sword in her hand, then rushed into his arms and sobbed loudly. Originally, Rusk was father's butler. The fact that a loyal butler, who is so talented, was assigned the task of looking after this secluded villa is likely because they believe only a talent like him could serve Dakwe. Dakwe had just thrown the fruit plate onto the floor. Dakwe complained loudly, "There is no flavor at all. I want to eat berries." Rusk bowed respectfully and replied, "I will bring berries up immediately." And all this time, Rusk has been silently doing his part. Arriving in front of Dakwe's room, Rusk spoke up, "My lady, Master Dakwe is inside this room." Just as he was about to open the door, Macaron suddenly raised her hand to stop him. "Wait a moment, I will go in first." Having said that, she quickly pushed the door open and stepped inside. Seeing before her eyes that something was flying swiftly toward her, she immediately leaned her body to one side and caught it with her bare hands. Rusk, standing behind, saw this scene and could not help but worry, calling out, "Young lady!" Macaron frowned and demanded in a stern voice, "Come out!" Then she snatched the lantern from Rusk's hand and mocked him with a harsh tone, playing the role of the master in this tiny mansion. "Are you having a lot of fun?" Saying this, she suddenly stopped and looked silently at the plump man in front of her for a moment. Then she couldn't help but ask in confusion, "Where is my brother?" He bowed his head slightly and explained, "Because that is indeed Master Dakwe." Hearing him say that caused her extreme shock, as she hurriedly turned her head and shouted, "What?" Then, while reminiscing about the lean and slender appearance of Dakwe a few years ago, along with his current pale and fat body, she couldn't stop her disbelief, her mouth agape as she thought, in just a few years, can a person change to this extent? But while Macaron was still bewildered by reality, Dakwe suddenly threw a barley glass toward the two of them, just as the glass was about to hit Rusk's face. She was one step faster and reached out her hand to catch it. Then she thought with resentment. This time he also wanted to aim at Rusk. How cruel. Is he planning to use this method to test the level of loyalty? Dakwe stood up in a rage and asked, "What's this? If you don't want to die, then get out." Rusk hurriedly bowed and explained, "Master, this is Lady Macaron." He gruffly roared a command, "Shut up! Anyone looking would know why you came here. Trying to annoy me, aren't you?" Before he could even finish his sentence, Macaron did not hesitate to use the glass from earlier and threw it accurately into the middle of his forehead, causing him to lose quite a bit of balance and fall heavily to the floor, losing consciousness. Seeing that, she smiled gleefully and asked, "Brother, you've neglected your training, so your reflexes are slow, and your heart has become narrow-minded as well. You truly are a pathetic person. Rusk, if he causes any more trouble later, report it back to me. Why has the room's space turned out like this?" He closed his eyes and replied hesitantly, "About that, the master ordered that no one touch any of his belongings." "Young lady, what are you doing?" "Please, leave matters like this to me, Rusk." Suddenly finding something, Macaron spoke with surprise. "Oh, I knew it would be here. With this, we can replant the berries, right?" But while Macaron was focusing on observing the berry seeds in her hand, Dakwe had woken up at some unknown point and approached closely behind her back, radiating murderous intent. Thank you for watching today's video. Our story still continues with many exciting developments ahead. Therefore, Don't forget to press like and subscribe to the channel to support us and not miss the latest chapters. Wishing you moments of relaxation and joy. See you in the next video. Thank you for watching.